WTKA The Ticket presents the KeyBank Countdown to Kickoff.
Yeah,
3
so
weeks into
it's
the Big Ten
something
season, and the Michigan Wolverines are at a crossroads, following back-to-back ugly losses to Michigan State and Indiana.
There we go. All right, we're in our open on the radio, and hi everybody on the stream. And now we're bringing in Sam. Sam, we are in the open on the radio. Let's get those organized. All right, Miz will count us in momentarily. Happy Saturday, fellas.
Happy Saturday.
Steve just went away.
Saturday.
Steve, where are you? Can't see you.
Oh, darn it.
There you are.
Darn script. I thought you shut me down again.
No, those are your. I'm pretty sure those were your notes.
That was my notes. Thank you.
So, hi everybody on the internet. Nice to see you. Happy Saturday. Split my time between
The
paying attention to
pageantry.
you guys and watching the Masters.
The pageantry,
A tradition.
unlike any other.
Oh, my gosh. I just want to do like a mockumentary of people who call the Masters. It's just the adjectives
Yes.
they use that they say so delicately, slowly.
Hello, friends.
Hello, friends.
And take a drink, by the way, when you hear the word hallowed ground.
Yeah.
Oh, goodness gracious. I'm working, okay? Here we go. We're live
right.
on radio in 5, 4, 3, 2.
Hello and welcome to the KeyBank Countdown to Kickoff on Sports Talk 1050 WTKA The Ticket, online at WTK.com and on Ticket TV. It might be Masters Saturday, so I'm in my Masters portion of my house, and I'm watching the Masters on a side screen over here. But it's, of course, a college football Saturday, and we're looking forward to talking football with my guys, Sam Webb, Steve Clarke, this afternoon here on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, WTK.com/countdown, and on Sports Talk 1050 WTKA.
You got to put that
The
comment
Ticket.
fire.
So, good afternoon, everybody. As we are here, again, you're on Ticket TV. If you're on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, you can make comments. Sam will laugh at them throughout the broadcast, and it is sometimes we will announce them on the air as well. Hello, guys. How are you?
Hey, man. Glad that we are ready for another game. You know, ready to talk about another game. If we are like that, can't wait for them to have an opportunity to exercise some demons, get that bad taste out of their mouths. And not that it's going to be easy. I don't care that Wisconsin's been off for a couple of weeks, Steve. This team is, they're hungry. They're always really good. I think we've seen enough examples of this COVID-impacted year to see how teams can be really sharp coming off a break. And Michigan has had its share of struggles, and they have their share of injuries that are going to impact them today as well.
And for Wisconsin, Sam, I mean, we'll be talking a lot about them in the second hour, but the key is, will Graham Mertz play, or will his backup, Chase Wolf, play in this game? Who they play a quarterback, and how many people are down for Wisconsin? It's going to be at least 10, but what kind of 10 or more players are going to be down? I think it's going to be important to Michigan's fortunes today, Ira.
All right, so guys, last week, we know what happened on the scoreboard. Michigan loses to Indiana 38-21. Incidentally, Indiana is up big on Michigan State today. But Steve, let's go back to last week. The good, I'm not sure what the good was, but the bad and the ugly, let's recap last week's game before we can move forward to today.
Well, there's a couple of good things that I saw. I watched Joe Milton and Ronnie Bell battle in the second half, in which had to be Michigan's Alamo call at halftime when the coaches, tell them what it all means and how important the second half is and the victory and what it means for them in terms of winning a division championship. They didn't get it. And I'm not saying anybody on the team quit, but it was very evident to me that those two, Joe Milton and Ronnie Bell, were battling. And on a special teams standpoint, Brad Robbins punted for nearly 54 yards on average. I mean, he flipped the field. It's just unfortunate the defense couldn't take advantage of that, Sam.
Yeah, look, I said this during the week on the Michigan Insider that, times like these is not just about who's the captain being the leader. You need the guys that are showing the fire, showing the passion, showing the intensity, regardless of the moment. I mean, I think that you guys have been in adversity-laden situations before, right? Where some of us can really have our demeanor, our emotional state impacted significantly by that. That's when you need those fiery guys to say that there's still a fight to be won. There's still a battle that can be won. And I saw a lot of that from Ronnie last week. I think it was an important thing for them to be able to show that they had, for all of the things that we're going to get into today about the technical flaws, some of the personnel deficiencies that they might have. Steve, you can get a long way with desire, with will, to will yourself through some of these moments. And again, like I said, I think we saw some of that from Ronnie, who obviously isn't a captain. We saw some of that from Joe, who obviously is not a captain. I really don't care. I mean, nor should they. If you can step up, if you have that in you, then bring it. And they need some of that from defense too, because Aiden Hutchinson, you saw him being the guy that was kind of trying to be the fire-up guy before the game. He's out for the season. That doesn't mean he's gone from the team, but he's not on the field with them. And then Kwity Paye, another captain. And guys, I'm not optimistic. I'm not optimistic about Kwity Paye being available. So who in their absence is going to be that guy on defense? Even with all the limitations that they have, who's going to be that guy or those guys that give them something in the way of emotion this week? That's a big deal to me.
All right, so guys, go ahead, Steve.
I guess we're going to move on to the bad portion, which might take the majority of this segment. You hit on some of it, of course, Sam. The offensive line really missing Jalen Mayfield and Ryan Hayes in this one. The Wolverines had 13 rushing yards on just 18 attempts. We asked more for Hassan Haskins last week, and he led the way with 6 whole carries and 19 yards, while Zach Charbonnet got 1 single rush in this game. But it didn't matter. IU had 5 tackles for a loss on those 18 attempts. It didn't matter who Michigan was sending in there to carry the ball. The IU defense was very active and very opportunistic.
Look, this is where, as much as you can, and I understand, again, you're talking about limitations, to the extent that they can try to scheme around that some more, to augment the run game potentially if it feels like they are running into a brick wall. That's what they try to do. Got to try to do it. And again, it's not like they didn't try it last week. I mean, there were some perimeter plays. They threw it out on the edge and tried to get it out there. You saw some of the attempts to get outside, and those were snuffed out too. And that brings into, you talk about the limitations with the offensive line, Steve. Receivers aren't limited. They blocked extremely well in game 1. They haven't blocked well the last couple of weeks, and certainly last week when you look at a couple of those tackles for loss were on the receiver. So again, everyone that's out there has to step up his game, and especially those guys that we've seen do it before. I'm not excusing the offensive line, saying that because they haven't played, that we shouldn't expect anything of them, but the receivers, we know they have it in them, and if Michigan's going to do better on the perimeter, then those guys have to do better in the blocking game. And frankly, as far as the guys on the line are concerned, Steven, tell me what you think about this. I understand the reluctance if you don't have Jalen Mayfield and Ryan Hayes to rotate at some of those other positions, because you could get even younger in some of those places. But I just feel like at this point, at this stage, you're 1 and 2. Some of the performances on both offense and defense at certain positions have been woeful. I just don't think you risk much of a drop off by giving some of those young guys an opportunity at some of those positions. And hey, maybe in between some of the mistakes that are inevitable with youth, maybe they make a few more plays than the guys that have been playing in front of them. I think you got to give them a shot.
Well, Michigan's desperate for wins at this point. You know that. The fan base is ready for that. Michigan looked great in week 1. Week 2 on the offensive line against Michigan State, a lot of technical mistakes that you would think that experienced guys would be able to come in and correct those. Instead, those experienced guys weren't able to play. And now you've got guys making their first game starts, and you're expecting them to be a well-oiled machine. No, they're going to suffer through not only freshman mistakes, but first-time game mistakes. It was too much to ask for against an Indiana team that's now ranked in the top 10. As far as the ugly portion, Sam, the repetitive penalties and when they occurred. 8 for 89 yards doesn't seem to begin the problem. The defensive line constantly pulled offsides. I mean, is 5 too much before you finally catch on? There would have been more penalties, but IU capitalized on the free play a few times, declined those penalties. The first play for the defense, after I'm sure which was a scorching halftime speech at halftime, was a pass interference. And the same thing for the offense on the first play was a pass interference call, but they had a penalty. So you had a PI and a hold on your first play on both sides of the ball after the Alamo call at halftime. I'm sure, again, it was a big motivational speech. You have those things happen. Michigan's defense also had 2 penalties on third down that would have forced a punt, but instead IU turned those into first downs and eventually 10 points on those 2 possessions.
Yeah, man. It's, this is twofold. Look, they had an issue getting heat on the quarterback. Make no mistake. It's been a tough road to hoe for them. Steve, it was supposed to be the strength of the defense, and it hasn't been. I mean, you look around and you consider what we were hearing coming out of practice about the big plays they were able to hit, about the pressure that the big plays the offense was able to hit, and about the pressure the defense was able to apply. And I think you got to, now that we've seen a few games, kind of recalibrate. What was that based on? And I think it was based on who they were practicing against. We've seen other teams hit big plays on Michigan's secondary, right? We've seen other teams get pressure on Michigan's quarterback. So I think that maybe inflated the perception of where they are or where they were heading into the season. Now it's time to recalibrate. And I think you saw some of that guys kind of antsy, kind of itchy. I got to get an edge to get to the quarterback. And all that did was compound matters for the guys on the back end. It made it even tougher for them. I mean, you tell a team that's already attacking you deep that now there's no consequence for an error. I can throw it up and an interception doesn't matter because I'm getting the 5 yards anyway. It just makes life that much tougher. You need to have a greater discipline up front. And it gets back to what I've been saying about living to fight another day. The bend but don't break philosophy. I think it bleeds over from the perception of the coaches into the players. Look, if I don't get there this time, we got another down because we are playing soft enough to where we aren't gonna die in one shot. They're gonna have to do 10, 12 play drives, and they're gonna get it sometimes, Steve. But they're also gonna throw it up to you some of those times. And I'm waiting for you to touch on this. How many times did Michigan get its hands on the ball defensively and drop an interception? Or they had an opportunity to get off the field or make a stop, and there was an interference on a play where the receiver wasn't going to catch the football. The opportunities that you do have are the ones that they have to make at least a few more of those to get off the field a few more times.
Early second half, they had a chance for an interception on a deep ball thrown down to the midfield, and it was an extraordinary effort by Brad Hawkins to get his hands on the football. I just wish he didn't, because otherwise it was a lob to Dax Hill for the easy INT.
All right, so now that leads us to now Michigan 1-2 on the season, and today the 69th meeting between Michigan and Wisconsin. Last year, Michigan won it was a 35-14 victory by Wisconsin in Madison. The last time they played in Ann Arbor, Michigan won the game here. In fact, Michigan is 24-6 at Michigan Stadium against the Badgers, and they've won 7 of their last 8, including and also 19 of their last 21 here in Ann Arbor. So the conversations, though, today are about what we just talked about moving forward. Obviously, Wisconsin coming in, having only played 1 game, injuries on the Michigan football team, and then also a big recruiting weekend, an unofficial recruiting weekend. So we're going to get to that later on in the show as well. Coming up next, we're talking Big Ten football and more, so stay with us. This is the KeyBank Countdown at Kickoff, live from Saline, Ypsilanti, and Ann Arbor on Sports Talk 1050 WTKA The Ticket and on Ticket TV.
Clear on radio.
Yeah, so a huge visit weekend, and we're going to have some great guests. We're going to have JJ McCarthy, the point man in this class. And I'm telling you, talking to JJ, talking to his dad over the last few weeks, and kind of getting a feel for what they're thinking with all of the buzz and chatter going on about Michigan. And there are some guys in this class that you feel like they're not solid, right? Like Andre Anthony, I think that he's a guy whose ears are open, whose antenna are up. I'm hearing Indiana, I'm hearing Northwestern, I'm hearing Notre Dame with Andre. Michigan State for sure. There's none of that with JJ. I mean, he is as locked in, as focused on getting here in a couple of months. JJ is, he's set to enroll in January, and so he is super locked in. We're going to have JJ come on the KeyBank Countdown to Kickoff here in about 15 minutes. So he's going to join us. He's on campus right now, part of this dead period visit weekend with so many. I mean, I think there are like 7 or 8 commits and then some of the top targets in the country in the 2022 class, especially in a top corner. I mean, this is going to be an interesting test case because you got Sierra Wright, who's going to join us on the KeyBank Countdown to Kickoff. He's coming on at 4:20. Sierra Wright is one of the top corners in the country from Los Angeles Loyola, which is David Long's school. He's an aspiring actor. He's in Space Jam 2, but he's a corner. And, you watch these corners have issues. How do, Steve, and this is going to be one of the questions kind of throw at him, to kind of throw at some of these corners that are on campus. How do you view that when you see your position really, really struggling on the football field? Is that a turnoff, or does it appeal to your desire for immediate playing time?
I think it's a turnoff for a parent, but an opportunity for playing time for the player. I think the player is thinking about when do I get to start? When do I get to play? I know I'm great. And I've bought in on the coaching staff. I've got relationships there. I love campus. So that's that. Now you got the parent who's got a little bit more wisdom. Maybe he's wondering a little bit about, coach's success with previous players on the same team. Maybe. Sheldon, I'm always having something.
Hey, listen. Put that message up on the screen. I'm wearing my jersey because my wife washed it. I told her, I said, look, before the text messages came,
1 minute,
I said, honey, I need my jersey washed. Do you understand what kind of wrath I would have felt if I came on this show?
Hey, Sam, suggestion for you. How about you do your own laundry? I do most of the laundry in this house.
Oh, I don't do my own laundry.
I do almost all the laundry in this house.
Not because I don't.
30 seconds.
My wife has banned me from doing laundry. She's like, I literally cannot do the laundry.
Because you don't do it right, and she wants to do it correctly.
Good.
If I had blood on one when Grace got all smashed her face and she got blood on that jersey, my wife did clean that, and that was an impressive job in the laundry room to get that one clean. But on a day-to-day basis, I'd take care of most of it.
Something to look forward to, Sam. I've been told my kids are putting their clean clothes that my wife folded and left them
stand by, guys,
in the bucket only to be cleaned again. They didn't use them. They never put them away.
This is a good high sign, by the way, over at Yost. Michigan up 2-0 on Arizona State, beginning of second period. Listen, that game, we'll keep you updated on that one. Back on radio in 5, 4, 3, 2.
Win the ultimate Bud Light Victor's Lounge tailgated home package, courtesy of our friends at Bud Light. It's easy. Just go to WTKA.com/countdown and click for your chance to win the ultimate Bud Light Victor's Lounge tailgated home package from our friends at Bud Light and your friends here at Sports Talk 1050 WTKA The Ticket. Real quickly, before we get into our Big Ten conversation, we'll give you some scores. You just heard if you're watching on the stream for Miz early in the second period. Michigan has a 2-0 lead over Arizona State in the first hockey game of the season. So excited to see the Wolverines up on top in that one. In Big Ten action today, final from East Lansing. Indiana beats Michigan State 24-0. And Nebraska at home beats Penn State 30-23. Penn State had the ball first and goal in the last minute and could not convert a touchdown, and they lose the game 30-23. Right now you have in action Rutgers and Illinois tied at 20 with 10:32 to go in the fourth quarter. Coming up at 5 o'clock in a game that was moved up from the 7:30 window, now at 5 o'clock, Northwestern at Purdue. Canceled this week, Ohio State at Maryland due to a coronavirus outbreak within the Maryland program. And so... and last night Iowa beat the pants off in Minnesota 35-7. And so I'd given Steve an assignment essentially to kind of do a power ranking of the Big Ten. And the exercise to show where some of the teams that are usually at the top are way down at the bottom. So now that we see results from today, Steve, they're probably impacted that much more. But did you have a little fun doing that exercise, or was it painstaking knowing where maybe some of these programs are?
Because of where you end up putting Michigan, and that's what's difficult. I mean, I got Ohio State at number 1, Wisconsin at number 2, but this is based on expectation as much as the dominance they had over Illinois on the opening weekend of 45-7. Indiana's now 4-0, so they got to be at least number 3. Then I got Northwestern at 4, Purdue at 5. That's going to be a great matchup that we should be talking about, because the winner of that is basically going to be the one that's going to contend with Wisconsin for the Western Division Championship. Maryland 2-1, impressive win at Penn State. But what's the state of that team right now?
Man.
They're now 0-4 in the conference. Maryland at 2-1. Iowa's number 7 in my rankings at 2-2 now. They lost to 2 teams ranked ahead of them. The dominant win over MSU. I'm going to have more on that, a little recap of their game Friday against the Golden Gophers. Rutgers, believe it or not, I have them at 8. I have Rutgers at 8 on the virtue of beating Michigan State, which is number 9. Because Michigan State beat Michigan, the Wolverines are at 10. I'm moving Nebraska up a slot based on their win. They're at 11. And then it's Penn State at 12, Minnesota at 13, and Illinois has wrapped things up at 14. Although they're giving number 8 Rutgers a run for their money. They're tied at 20 going into the fourth quarter. But how about just for a moment?
Oh, jumping in real quick, Steve Clarke.
Yeah.
Goal by Nolan Moyle. Michigan up 3-0 in the second period over at Yost Ice Arena. The game can be heard on 1290 WLBY. Go ahead, Steve.
Just to wrap up a few things, what happened over the last 12 hours or so. Iowa beats Minnesota 35-7. Minnesota scores with 14 seconds left in the game. Iowa has now outscored their opponents 84-14 in their last 2 games. Mohamed Ibrahim, how about this? First Big Ten player since Mike Hart to have 140 yards or more rushing in their last 5 games. And remember when Tanner Morgan was the second best quarterback in the Big Ten, Sam?
Mm-hmm.
His quarterback rating is putrid for the season. Had an 89 quarterback rating last night. All right, Michigan State, Rocky Lombardi, benched after being 3 of 7 and 2 picks, resulting in 2 early Indiana scores, both for touchdowns. Peyton Thorne comes in 10 of 20, 110 and a pick himself. I used Ty Freifogel, 200 receiving yards and 2 touchdowns, while Michael Penix had 320 yards throwing. Again, Indiana with the shutout over Michigan State 24-0.
Yeah,
the most interesting game, though, had to be Penn State at Nebraska. Sean Clifford benched after a fumble and a pick. And for Nebraska, Martinez was benched before the game. So by 1:15 this afternoon, you had 3 starting quarterbacks in the Big Ten benched, by the early second quarter. So Luke McCaffrey comes in, and Nebraska has a 27-6 lead at halftime against Penn State. And Penn State, I think the whole fan base has just said, we're done. Yeah. Penn State wasn't done. They nearly tie it late, but Nebraska stops Penn State on downs in the red zone twice late in the game. The final 4 fresh set of downs inside the 10-yard line. Couldn't get it done in the final minute. And Nebraska holds on for their first win of the season, 30-23.
So Steve, what you're telling me, Steve, is that these next 2 weeks, Michigan, Rutgers, Michigan, Penn State, they're very important in your power rankings.
Very, very important, at least in terms of where Michigan is at.
Look, man, it's opportunity. If not that Michigan can afford to look at anyone on this schedule like I'm going to win that game after you lose to Michigan State, which is as bad as. So give me a second to as after eating all the crow and all the doo-doo on the stick that I ate from Michigan State beating Michigan. My assessment of Michigan State was not off. Michigan State does suck.
They are who you thought they were.
Yeah, I was right about how bad they were. Now, as my wife said, when I said I was right about it, she said, "Well, what does that say about Michigan, though?" I guess you're right. And maybe this was an example of them looking past a really bad football team. It should serve as a cautionary tale about a Penn State team that is struggling, about a Rutgers team that is not very, very good at all. But you look at these other teams, Penn State, and they had forecasted Clifford being moved out. They talked about it like it was going to be splitting time at quarterback. When you get to that point, the starter's going down, and they are reeling to think that they are an inch away. If they win that Indiana game, you wonder if the demeanor, the temperament, the mood of that team is totally different. But now they're down, and meanwhile, Iowa, a team that as much as I give that coaching staff, Kirk Ferentz especially, a lot of grief and guff for how they have the best contract in the country for what they do on the football field in the way of performance. But what they're getting out of this team this year coming off their offseason is impressive to me. I mean, they destroyed Michigan State like you should, and then to come out and handle Minnesota like they did. I know Minnesota is now looks like a really bad football team, but Iowa couldn't. Did you think Iowa would have it in them to score? score like this, Steve, when you saw him the first couple of weeks? I certainly didn't.
No, and they're doing it mostly with their running game of Tyler Goodson and Mekhi Sargent. Look, the thing that I'm thinking about right now, and we'll see how Michigan responds in this Wisconsin game tonight, but you're looking at three teams where the Wolverines, Penn State, and the Minnesota Golden Gophers all had very, very high expectations. And within 2 weeks, their goals are done. And they still have to play 7 more games. And that's the way at least Penn State and Minnesota is looking right now, knowing that their goals are finished by the time 25% of the season is played. They're basically look like they're playing pedestrian.
Yeah,
and Michigan's in the same boat, and we hope that Michigan is not going to be that way the rest of the way. But I think all three of those teams are in the same scenario.
Steve,
meanwhile,
spot on.
What's that?
I said spot on. I was thinking the same thing. Michigan is teetering on the edge of being right there with them. I mean, if they lose this game, I think how they lose it matters too, Steve. Yes. I really, really do. I mean, can you lose a game to a good team and still feel like you made? And I'm not into moral victories, but can you look like you made progress in this game and lose it because Wisconsin is that good? I think, yes, you can ill afford, in my opinion, to get destroyed in this game, because if they do, then you're right. They're in the same boat as Penn State, and of course as Penn State, Michigan State, and Minnesota.
Then you, on the other side of the coin, you've got teams like Purdue, Indiana, and Northwestern, who had middle of the road expectations. Let's throw Rutgers in there too. Rutgers had low expectations. Because they're getting some modicum of success, albeit early, they're bought in. They're doing everything that they're supposed to be doing. Indiana's defense is playing inspired football. Northwestern offensively and defensively are playing inspired football, and that's going to carry them at least until their first loss, but that seems to be the key. You lose one, you lose two, and it's like, what are we doing here? That seems to be how teams are reacting so far.
All right, guys, one game in the Big Ten to pick. It was supposed to be played at 7:30. They moved it up to 5 p.m. because of the Maryland-Ohio State cancellation. BTN shuffled their lineup a little bit, which is why you have the 1 o'clock game, the Illinois-Rutgers game going on right now, which is still at 20-20. Game is tied with 9 minutes to go in the fourth quarter. Then coming up at 5 o'clock, Northwestern at Purdue. It's a pretty big game in the West. Steve Clarke, what you got on this one?
Darn it, I was hoping you'd ask Sam first. But, every expert is picking Northwestern to win this game. And you know what? I'm going to go with the Boilermakers at home. I'm liking their offense. Northwestern, I like their defense. They've been shutting everybody out in the second half. No points allowed. But I think Purdue has got what it takes to be able to get through. They especially play well in night games at Ross-Ade. Again, no big crowd to hamper on that. And quite honestly, I just haven't completely bought into the Wildcats yet. So I'm going to go against the grain. I think I have at least a game or two lead on Sam. I'm willing to fork that up. I'm willing to fork that up to let Sam tie me if he decides to take the status quo pick, the safe pick, the everybody else picked this way in Northwestern. Sam.
Yeah, what's the word? What's the status, the latest on Rondale Moore?
Nobody knows.
Game time. I tell you what, he plays. You got a compliment with David Bell.
Yeah.
And Aiden O'Connell is surprising me. Aiden O'Connell is surprising me as a quarterback. I don't think he can run worth a lick, but he seems to be able to pass the ball fairly well.
Wow. Tough one. Without knowing what Rondale Moore is going to do. Been very impressed with David Bell. George Karlaftis is my guy. He gives them a presence on defense. But I am going to go with Northwestern in this game.
Of course you are.
I think that you talked about their ability to run the ball. Kurt Anderson, who I talked to in the offseason, said they were going to be better up front this year. You certainly have a better quarterback, Trigger Man, and Peyton Ramsey running the show for you. I'm going to go with Northwestern in this game. Let's see if we can tie Steve on this.
All right, guys. We'll get, of course, to the Michigan-Wisconsin pick later on in the show. Again, scoreboard update right now with 7.5 to go in the fourth quarter. Illinois and Rutgers are tied at 20-20 in North Jersey. Indiana earlier beat Michigan State 24-0. Nebraska held on to beat Penn State 30-23. And last night, Iowa beat Minnesota 35-7. Elsewhere at Yost Ice Arena, it's the second period, and Michigan has a 4-0 lead over Arizona State in the first hockey game of the season. So the guys on the ice are doing it there. And down in Augusta, Georgia, through 14 holes, Dustin Johnson is your leader at 15 under par. Justin Thomas is at 12 under par, so he's 3 shots back. And then Fratelli, Reed, and Im are at 11 under par. We've got a lot more football to get to here on the show. It's also a big unofficial recruiting weekend for the Michigan Wolverines. This is not orchestrated by the program. So Sam's going to lay this out and explain to you what's going on this weekend when it comes to a big recruiting weekend for the Maize and Blue. So stay with us. This is the KeyBank Countdown to Kickoff on Sports Talk 1050 WTK The Ticket and on Ticket TV.
Clear on radio.
Thank you, Ms.
All right, you should have some folks or JJ trying to come into the waiting room here pretty soon.
As soon as I see it, I'll have him join in.
Yeah. He said he's hopping on right now.
All right, so he should be able to click in and.
All right, awesome. So the way it works, people, with dead period means no in-person contact. It doesn't mean no contact. So coaches can call, they can have the virtual interaction. Difference of the dead period visit, though, is when a kid comes to campus during the dead period, and this is this new thing this year, they can't talk to coaches on the phone or via Zoom or anything, FaceTime or anything like that in that time. So when they're on campus, they're truly on their own, doing their own thing. And it was a really organic thing, as a lot of the kids were talking about getting to campus, and it just so happened to work out where they could all come at the same time and really connecting and bonding with a guy who, he's been, to me, for the last couple of years, one of the best quarterbacks in the country, regardless of class. And he's happened to been committed to Michigan at the same time. JJ, how you doing, man? We aren't live yet on the radio, but we are live on YouTube, on Twitter, on Facebook Live. So your fans are seeing you right now, man.
You speak too highly. You gotta calm down. We haven't done it yet, but I appreciate it.
I hear you, man. I hear you. So when we go live on the air, we'll talk a little bit about your time at IMG, but we'll really get into the bonding opportunity and the bonding experience that you're having with some of your future teammates and some other guys that might be future teammates down the line. So interesting thing. But I got to ask you, have you adapted to the weather after being down there in Florida all that time?
Man, I'm telling you, I'm more than adapted. I'm missing it. It's home.
Hey, man, when guys go down to Florida and start getting that weather, they say you get a little soft. I'm glad to see that didn't happen to you.
No, sir. That's the thing about, I was in Florida for 4 months. It felt like a very long time, but those 4 months helped me so much, and I'm ready to come back home. I hear
that. So what, you guys got one more game left, right?
Yes, sir. Mm-hmm.
And one more game. And then it's all about getting ready. Now, I know that one of the things that you really did is, man, you look at you physically. I know you have put on a lot of weight. Looks like you slimmed down a little bit, though, lately.
Yeah, I mean, going into IMG, I was around 197 pounds. I was up there. I was approaching the 2 bills. And after just everything was going on with Corona, and it's new for everyone. So I'm not. There's nothing that IMG did wrong with it. It's just this situation that I was in, and it wasn't a very comfortable situation. So the weight went down pretty good. But I mean, when you got Coach Herb, and I'm gonna walk in there around over 200 pounds. So I'll be ready right before I get in the door, and then Coach Herb is just gonna tune me up even more.
Standing by for radio.
Stand by for radio. And JJ, right. I'm going to need your secrets to drop about 2 bills on me, okay? So we'll figure that out after the segment. Back on radio in 5, 4, 3, 2.
Welcome back to the KeyBank Countdown to Kickoff on Sports Talk 1050 WTK The Ticket, online at WTK.com and on Ticket TV. We are brought to you by KeyBank, powered by Bud Light, driven by Brighton Ford, and supported locally by Wolverine Rental. And as we were talking about during the break, if you're with us on Ticket TV, but also in the end of the previous segment, it's a huge recruiting weekend for the Wolverines, but it's an unofficial recruiting weekend. And for all things recruiting, I punt it right over to my guy, Sam Webb.
Well, hey, look, I went down to see our next guest, not last summer, but the summer before. He had committed to Michigan and talked to him on the phone and talked to his dad a great deal. And the thing that I was so impressed with and by was that as a sophomore, here a kid stepped into the helm of a team and quarterbacked it to a state championship, a veteran-laden team. To be able to do that, to command the respect of those older guys and lead it in the way he did, says something to me about more than just his physical talent. It says something to me about his intangibles and what he is as a leader. And I've come to be even more impressed with that over time as I've gotten to know him. And I'm talking about Michigan quarterback commitment, originally from Illinois in Nazareth Academy, but spending his senior year at IMG Academy in Florida. JJ McCarthy. JJ, how you doing, man?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you, Sam?
Doing great, man. I don't know if you're catching some of these messages, but Linda Mulick said your hair is to die for, man. I don't know if you saw that. I don't know if you saw that message.
I get that. Thank you.
Yeah, but your fans are coming through for sure. And that's the kind of excitement. And I'm curious how that struck you. Are you surprised? I mean, Michigan fans have been just ultra super hype about your commitment. And I wonder if any of that caught you by surprise.
Well, it definitely caught me by surprise when I committed right away, because the support of a fan base at that extreme level was something I've never experienced before. I've never experienced the whole culture behind the Michigan fan base and the university as a whole, and the alumni base and everything to do with that M. And once after I committed, and just all the exposure got put out there with everything. And I think it had to do with me committing so early, and especially at the quarterback position. That wasn't like something that was very, it was almost unique in a way, because the quarterback usually takes longer to commit and all this. And it just kind of was a situation, like I said on Twitter, it felt right. Like, you get that feeling and you know it's right. And that feeling has stuck with me ever since then. It's stuck with me, and it's only, that feeling's only grown. So
yeah. So now, as you know, as a player, it can go up and down, the support or the mood of the fan. So when you're winning or when you commit, super hype. When some losses happen, you get the other side of it. So does that impact you? Because fans have been, after a 1-2 start for Michigan, the fans have been really, really down.
Well,
really,
that's the thing.
Some of it is obviously warranted, but they've been really, really down. Has that affected you at all?
No, because when is everything in life perfect? Nothing in life is perfect for a constant period of time. There's always going to be ups and downs. Life is just a never-ending roller coaster. So when you see that Michigan is kind of struggling right now, think of it this way. Instead of, oh, why? What's going on? What's What's all this? Oh, we can only go up from here. I heard a statistic that was crazy. With Michigan hasn't been 1-2 in like decades, and wow, that's just something we could sit back and just be amazed by, that of the amount of success we've had in the past years. And that's why I love this university so much, is because it's the demand of excellence. And I want to be a part of that. So that's why I love this.
Right. It's definitely ringing and resonating with the fans, the words you just uttered. And that's something that can be infectious with other recruits, JJ. So obviously you're on the campus with the same time as a lot of your brothers, a lot of other guys that are committed to Michigan, a lot of guys that are, other schools are trying to use this as an opportunity to break them free from those commitments. I'm curious what the experience has been like with them so far. The same thing with some of the guys who aren't committed, who are looking at Michigan and might be wondering what's going on. What is the mood? What has the vibe been like with those guys?
The vibe has just been something that is not what I really feel when I have gone on my past recruiting trips. It's the vibe of almost like a unified class. And you never knew if the kid was a 22 or a 21 or even like a 23. because we were literally just one group walking together around the campus and one group just kind of chatting. And there was no individual like cliques. You know what I mean? There wasn't just like, oh, the kids from Cali's were only hanging out with each other and the kids from the Midwest were only hanging out with each other. It was everyone was together and enjoying the experience that they're going through right now. So it was just that, like, you already feel the team coming together before we even came together yet. And that was pretty special, man. That was a vibe that hit really, really, really hard.
Steve, you got anything for JJ before we let him go?
You know, JJ, I just was curious, you know, who keeps you grounded? Because I sense some maturity in there, and and I know your talent level is fantastic too. So I'm curious about who grounds you, and do you feel any pressure coming into this situation?
Okay, those are two really amazing questions. And who keeps me grounded? It starts from my mom, my dad, and God. That's what keeps me grounded, and definitely all my supporters that have supported me since I was 2 years old, and all the supporters around me right now. It's everything that, I mean, people are literally going out of their way so I can achieve my dreams. Like, that's something that is so taken for granted nowadays. And I just appreciate that. And talking about the pressure, you know the saying, there is no diamonds without pressure. There is no championship rings without pressure. That's the thing, that when you start to realize that you can't get anything that you truly want unless you take that step, you take that leap, then, like, I'm taking that leap. Going to Michigan is taking that leap. Committing to this university is taking that leap. Everyone on this team is taking that leap. So I cannot wait to just step into this program and just be a part of it, and be a part of that quarterback room, and learn under Joe until his time's ready, and learn under Cade, learn under Dan, learn just nonstop, and just work my butt off. That's all I'm going to be focusing on when I come in there, is just working my absolute hardest and making sure that everyone's having a good time.
I didn't think it was possible to get Michigan fans in a collectively in a good mood, but JJ, I don't know if you can see the comment section, but man, folks on YouTube or Facebook Live or Twitter and Periscope or WTKA.com, super fired up about the message and about the vibe that you're giving off. So, man, look, we don't want to take up too much of your time. I know you got to get back with your future teammates, some of the other recruits. Enjoy yourself. We're going to have much more from JJ over the Michigan Insider.com. Tell your mom and dad I say hello. And I'll be in touch, man. You know, I'll be catching up with you.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, Steve. Thank you so much, Sam. I'll talk to y'all later.
All right. Thanks a lot. JJ McCarthy. What did you think, Steve?
Fantastic. We had a chance to talk to him once before, and I think his dad on the countdown to kickoff last season. And yeah, I mean, it just puts a smile on your face, without a doubt. And looking forward to his leadership, as well as the other future leaders into this 2021 recruiting class.
All right, so we go from one guest to another. Ooh-wee. Now, you guys know I like to talk a lot of trash, right? You know, I can get into it when it comes to Michigan, Michigan State, Michigan, Ohio State. You know this about me. And you know I am partial to players and to families who get down like I do. And our next guests, they do that, coming all the way from the state of California. And this is the second time in a few weeks that they've done this. I'm talking about the Dixons. Christian and Christian. Now, you got to understand, Christian Dixon, the player, is Christian without the H. Christian Dixon, the mom, is Christian with the H. So, Christian and Christian, how you guys doing?
We good. How are you? Hi, Steve. Hi,
Sam. So,
how you doing, Christian?
Good. How are you?
Doing great, man. So, let's just start off first with, this is you guys were just here a couple of weeks ago, and you came back. What was it that made you guys say you had to get back so quickly?
So we seen what we could see at this point. I think it was more of the building relationship aspect, since COVID hit, kind of put some bumps in the road. So I didn't get to meet any of my fellow classmates I'm early enrolled with and have time with. So we kind of just building relationships, really. That's probably what was the biggest aspect.
So Mom, we talked about you being from Cali. Obviously raising Christian in Cali, and you guys have experienced a couple of cold weekends. So how has that hit you because I know that was one of the things you said. I don't know about the cold. So how has that hit you since you've been here?
This weekend is a lot better than last time. I was ready this weekend. I bought some clothes from down here, and you guys make them a whole lot better than we do. So I got some clothes from here, so I was ready. It's not too bad today at all. So it was good. He said he's fine.
Okay, well that's what's most important. So what about this? Speaking of being fine, we know that Michigan is off to a little bit of a rough start, 1-2. And we know that other schools have used that as an opportunity to really try to, loosen up the grip of some of the commitments, loosen up some of the commits to Michigan. And so I'm curious, have other schools come at you guys? Have they tried to appeal to you, Christian, and try to get you to reconsider your decision? And if so, how have you responded to that?
Schools are always going to come, to be honest, but I feel like I feel like our class, we do something special. So I feel like everybody really wants to be here. So I feel like everybody's kind of getting nicked and nagged everywhere. Because, schools are always trying to get them late commitments. But yeah, I really feel like I've just been responding, just keeping close relationships because you don't want to burn no bridges, but just staying cool and I just know I'm locked in.
All right, so Mom, obviously one of the big deals as you prepare to let your baby go across the country to school, you had to get a good feel for the place, and you got that before he even got here. Now that you've seen Michigan, what do you think of it? Now that you haven't been able to talk to the coaches since you've been on campus, but just being here, catching the vibe, being around some of the other parents, whatever your impression's been.
We ready. We ready. It's time to go. Time is ticking down, and we ready. I like it though. It's nice. I like the town. I like the environment. I like the people. So I've been enjoying it. It's not bad at all. All
right. So how did both of you guys? This is a question for both of you. I mean, you see some struggle. Do you look at that and does it concern you some, or do you look at it and do you see opportunity to maybe get on the field and do your thing a little bit sooner than a lot of other people might be expecting you to?
Opportunity. Cause I feel like they're not playing at the highest level they could play. I feel like they're a team that they just need something a little bit more connection, a little bit. And once it clicks, it's going to be something special. And I feel like our class has those missing pieces that could do that.
What about you, Mom?
It's probably opportunity. I'm calling this class the takeover.
Okay.
So we coming to take over. We coming to win. So, I'm okay. It don't matter. We coming real soon. So.
All right. Because you're going to early enroll, right, Christian?
Yes.
All right. So Mom, how about this? And then Steve, whatever question you have, but I want the scouting report from Mom on what Michigan is getting in her baby. What are they getting in Dixon does it? What are they getting with Christian without the H when he hits the football field?
You are getting a technical mastermind. That's what you're getting. You're getting an excellent route runner. You're getting someone who is strong off the line, who has that deep ball threat. Give him that ball. The routes, the technique, he is physically capable of just leaving almost any DB. When he sees the field, he reads them. He reads his opponent. He reads the person he's coming up against. When at that line, the fight begins right there. So before he even takes off, he's in that head. He's making every DB cry and go, let me do better, because he's coming with it. So you are getting speed. You are getting strength. You are getting height. Look, I don't mean to brag, but y'all tell me I gotta be quiet.
I hear you. Now I will just ask this question though, because hearing how you are, I mean, definitely not short on letting people know what you think. So, Christian, is that how you get down on the field? I mean, do you just shake hands to go on your way, or do you let them know who you are?
I'm like, I just do what I do.
So Bob is the hype person in the equation.
Yeah, most definitely.
Don't let him fool you.
I got you. Steve, you got anything real quick?
Yeah, real quick. Mom, did you ever watch any WWE growing up at all?
I did. I watched WWE. I like boxing. I like all of them. I grew up with boys, so it was more sports on my television than you saw anything else, probably.
Hey, we had a request. They want you to talk to the team at halftime, just so you can fire them up, get them ready to go.
Oh, let me in there. Let me in there. We're going to win. Come on now.
I got you. Well, Christians, we appreciate you. Thanks you so much for coming on the show. Be safe out there. Have a good time. We'll be talking to you again soon.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks a
Go
lot.
Blue.
The Dixons, Christian and Christian. That's number 2 on the list. We still have more to come, right, Ira?
That's right. But before we get to the break, I want to remind everybody to listen after the game for the Retirement Income Solutions Locker Room Wrap-Up Show for the Offensive Play of the Game, brought to you by the Ticket's real estate partner, Matt Dejanovic. And you'll hear it on Sports Talk 1050 WTK The Ticket, and you can see it on Ticket TV. Coming up next, more on this big unofficial recruiting weekend. So stay with us on Sports Talk 1050 WTK The Ticket and on Ticket TV.
Hey, man. It's like that whenever
Clear on radio.
I gotta let you. It's like that every time you talk to her on the phone.
Oh.
Just will.
I felt like this was Mean Gene Okerlund setting her up. Sam, the question I was really going to ask the son was, and I'll ask you because you have the same answer. What kind of receiver is he? Is he? He's 197 listed. So is he a Nico or is he like a Ronnie Bell? What's he like?
In between. It's in between. So he's a little faster than Ronnie Bell, not as tall as Nico. He's a legit 6'2", in the 190s now. He was electronic, I think 4.62 as a junior. Electronic 4.62 as a junior, and was able to he said he's brought that down. He trains with Manuel Moody. He trains with TJ Hushmanzada. Did I say Hushmanzada right?
Yep.
Those are the guys that he's training with right now, getting ready to come to Michigan. And he definitely gives them some more attitude. So it's going to be good to go. But I see we got Rod and Sierra on, the next guest. Now, guys, we aren't live on the radio yet, but you are live on Facebook Live, on YouTube, on Twitter, on WTKA.com. So all the fans can see you. So if you got a message you want to send to them, go ahead and do it now.
What's up, everybody?
Oh, yeah. What's going on?
Yeah, man. So it's gonna be a good about 7-10 minutes talking to you guys about in your case, Rod, your season. In your case, Sierra, man, looking forward to hopefully having a season, right?
Yeah, hopefully.
So we'll get into that, talk a little recruiting, your impressions of Michigan to this point, and then we'll just let it roll from here. But how you guys enjoying the vibe, the mood of the weekend so far?
It's great. I'm loving it.
Yeah, it's cool. I'm getting to know a lot of people that I've just talked to in the group chat over the phone and stuff, and getting to know them in person is real nice and stuff like that.
So what about, I've been asking, or I've asked, both of the we had JJ on, we just had Christian on, asking them what they think of the weather. Now, Rod, I feel like I shouldn't even have to ask you this question. You're from Ohio, man.
I mean
you should be okay.
It's cold in Ohio, but it's different up here because of the wind. I mean, it doesn't feel the same, but it's pretty colder up here. And I mean, I'm used to it, but at the same time, I'm not.
What about you, Sierra?
It's not that cold to me. I don't think it's that cold. Like I was telling you, I'm built for this, So
okay. You're not just saying that because you got a bunch of people listening right now, are you?
I'm just saying.
I got your dad's phone number. I can ask him. We can get some background. He can tell me real.
1 minute.
I'm old,
1 minute,
so
1 minute to
I'm
radio.
built for Sarasota.
I hear you.
That's not Steve. Man. That's not far enough south. I think my wife said the Keys.
Hey, Sierra, do you know David Long at all?
Yeah, I know.
Okay. Yeah, does he come around very much?
I mean, he's come back a couple of times, but I've worked out with him separately. Like with our DB coach now, he trained him already. Like he trained him before, so we would work out together a lot. So that's how I really knew him.
I got you. How far away from coming back on the air are we, guys?
We are about 10 seconds from coming back on radio.
Right, stand by for radio.
All right, gentlemen, we are back on radio in 5, 4, 3, 2.
Welcome back to the KeyBank Countdown and Kickoff on Sports Talk 1050 WTKA The Ticket, online at WTKA.com and online at Ticket TV. Brought to you by KeyBank, powered by Bud Light, driven by Brighton Ford, and supported locally by Wolverine Rental. And this is the time of the show that we usually do our recruiting roundup, brought to you by the law offices of Joseph A. Simon. But Sam, we're just continuing our recruiting conversation as it is this big unofficial recruiting weekend here in Ann Arbor. So you've got a couple more guests. Take it away, recruiting guru.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, getting the vibe of togetherness from the weekend. You already got that from JJ McCarthy, and of course from the Christians, mom and son from out in Cali. We're going to bring you a little Midwest vibe and a little Cali vibe at the same time. So on one side, we got Michigan commitment from Clayton Northmont down in Ohio, one of the top safeties in the country, Mr. Rod Moore. Rod, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
Doing great, man. And then, of course, going out west, one of the top DBs in the game, one of the top targets left on the board for Michigan and for several other schools for that matter, Mr. Sierra Wright. Sierra, how you doing?
I'm good. I'm doing good. Thank you. Thank you for having me here.
All right. So guys, let's just jump right in and give me your impressions of just being together with the other guys. How has that affected you? What are your impressions so far? Let's start with you, Rod.
It just affected me by, like, I've talked to people on Snapchat, just texting them, but I haven't really got the face-to-face contact with them. And then just being able to do that right now helps me get to know them better and who I'm going to be coming in with in my freshman year. And I mean, it's pretty cool to get to know everyone.
What about you, Sierra?
Yeah, I feel like it's the same thing, just getting to know the people that are going to be here. And it's pretty exciting just, getting to feel the atmosphere and what it's like.
It was a big deal for you, man, because you had Michigan as one of your top schools, but you had never seen it. Yeah. Now, I'm not asking you what you're gonna do, but let's say for the sake of our argument that you hadn't made it here on the visit. Could you have really committed to Michigan without ever having seen it before?
I mean, it was always an option, but I mean, it's definitely a lot harder if you haven't seen the place. But now that I've been here, I'm loving it for sure, and so it's definitely it definitely takes it up a lot higher, just considering that I finally got the chance to be here.
Gotcha. So this is another question that is aimed at both of you guys. Obviously, Michigan is off to a rough start. The secondary probably is off to the roughest start on the team. How does that impact you? First, as a commit, Rod, does it concern you, or do you look at it as opportunity? And then the same question for you, Sierra, as one of the top recruits in the country, do you look at that and say, I don't know, or do you look at it and say, it's an opportunity for me? Let's start with you, Rod.
I look at it as opportunity because I see that how they're struggling, and if I go in there and work, I maybe can have a chance to play early. And that's really my ultimate goal, is to get in there early and be able to get as much film and time on the field as I can.
Sierra?
Yeah, I mean, I feel the same way. I definitely think it's an opportunity, I mean, everybody has rough starts, and so, I mean, coming in as a DB, I mean, that just makes it seem like, everybody's going to get an equal shot once you get there.
Okay, all right. So, Sierra, factors in your decision. I mean, I don't know if people know this about you. I've talked about you enough on my show that I feel like everyone knows that you're an aspiring actor. You're a Space Jam 2 guy, right?
Yeah.
And so how big of a role is that, or does that play in your decision-making process, understanding that looking at film schools is a big deal, but also hear that you're, maybe looking at majoring in business as well. So what are the things that kind of weigh in the recruiting equation for you?
Yeah, well, I want to major in business. So looking at film schools, I mean, I've thought about minoring in film and television, but I mean, the film school isn't like the number one priority for me. But yeah, I plan on majoring in business. But I think that acting is something that is always going to be there for you. Like, it's not something that has like a time limit on it, like football is. And so I feel like it's not as the number one priority to make sure that I go to a place that's gonna push me forward and acting wise.
Gotcha. All right. So Rod, looking at it on your side of things, man, you got this game today. You're obviously committed to Michigan. A former Michigan commitment, Marcus Allen, is now committed to Wisconsin. So what's the kind of the vibe between you two been like this week?
It's funny because we go to the same school and play on the same team,
we were just talking about, like, I just got off the phone with him about the game. He keeps saying they're going to beat us, and I'm saying, no, you're not. Like, we're just going back and forth about it. And then we also talk about future, like, when we're playing against each other, who's going to beat who and who's going to lock up who's going to score on who. So it's just going back and forth with each other.
Gotcha. All right, so Sierra, kind of wrapping things up, man. You just heard Rod use the word future. As we look at, your immediate future as far as the recruiting process is concerned, what's next for you? I mean, are there any other dead period visits on the horizon for you? What things are left to do before you make your decision?
The last visit that I thought about going is, I think I'll probably go to like Notre Dame maybe in December, possibly, and then after that I'm gonna commit on January 2nd, and then I'll probably do like a top schools list right before that. So other than that, nothing else really.
Steve, you got any questions? You guys?
I do real quick. Just want to remind people we're talking with Rod Moore and Sierra Wright, both very talented players who hopefully will be with one another in the secondary on the Michigan football field together. But for each of you guys, you are both here. What is the one thing that you want answered on this trip? You came to this trip. You came on this trip for a reason. What's the one thing that you wanted to know when you leave here?
If I would probably say if it feels like home, like if I like the vibe of the city, if it makes me feel like I'm at home.
Here?
Yeah, I agree with that for sure. Yeah, I was coming in here just trying to feel out the vibe, feel out the atmosphere. And so I think what my takeaways is going to be like, what the people that are here, like, am I going to be able to, am I going to like people that are here? And for so far, I definitely do. So
have you talked very much to David Long recently? And even if you haven't recently, when you did talk to him, what did he tell you about Michigan and what this experience was to him and what it might be for you?
He talks about, that it's a great place to be, and especially, I mean, it means a lot to me considering he went from my high school, then he went to Michigan, and then he went to the NFL, so it's, he just talked about like how he's trying to create a pipeline and how I should keep that going.
And he said you're going to maybe release a top list here in the next few weeks, possibly?
Yeah, something like that.
All right. So let's do this on the way out. Rod, why should Sierra come to Michigan? You got a message for Sierra why he should join in the secondary here?
We started off already talking about the secondary, what's going on right now, and then just the family of our recruiting class, and then coaches. Like Coach Harbaugh is a really great coach. The way he talks, his philosophy with his players. Like if you talk to him, he'll tell you about it. Like after college, what's his goal with his players? They either get their full-time job in graduate school or in a league. So that's about like 99% of his graduates. So, I mean, it's just a lot of opportunity coming out of this school. So
yeah, for sure.
All right, man. And I think you have a cousin here too, Sierra, is that right?
Yeah, I do. How did you know that?
Come on, man. I do my research, man. I'm on top of this. So
we've been asking that for years.
Pre-med, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, man, I'm on top of it. Well, hey, look, I appreciate you guys taking time out of your day. Get back to what you're doing, enjoying yourself, stay safe, and we hope to talk to you again soon. Sierra, you guys playing in the spring, right?
Yeah, that's the plan.
All right, man. Hopefully we'll get a chance to see you do your thing. Thanks a lot for your time.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
All right.
Thanks, guys, for joining us here on the show. Much appreciated. You're listening to the KeyBank Countdown to Kickoff and also watching us here on Sports Talk 1050, WTK The Ticket, online at WTK.com, and to JSC7778. Missing being in the tent. We all miss being inside the Bud Light Victor's Lounge, but we have our virtual Victor's Lounge right there in your house or wherever you're tailgating, getting ready for Michigan versus Wisconsin. That was a fun first hour. We still have 2 more hours to go. Coming up next, we kick off hour 2 talking about Michigan's opponent, the Badgers. Barely know them, but we're going to talk about them. Stay with us. This is the KeyBank Countdown to Kickoff on Sports Talk 1050, WTK The Ticket, and on Ticket TV.
All right, so I should never get a complaint about recruiting roundup ever again.
Thanks, Ty. It was all Sam. Sam texted me like, I got an idea. He called me. I got an idea.
What a drop. Sam, how did you know that? We've been asking that for years.
Sam's answer is correct, though. He does his research. Sam is very well versed.
That was
no question about it.
Yeah, he has a cousin.
Look at this Go Blue we got there, Mr. Clarke. Is that from upstairs?
Look at that.
What's that?
Is that Go Blue message on the screen from upstairs?
Oh, I don't know. I got to see it. I have you turned off, so hold on.
It's from.
Oh my goodness!
Is that from upstairs?
Yeah, I can tell you. A kid just sabotaged mom's computer.
What's up, Joe?
That's
how you doing down there in
know.
C-Bus, Joe? That's funny. Hijacked the computer.
Oh my goodness! Yeah, that ain't her. Phosphor.
Hey, a good proxy though. Whoever that is, I'm sure she would be happy to say Go Blue today because her team won. Isn't that how it works? So she's happy to wish you luck and good fortune when her team wins. It doesn't work like that. Doesn't work like that.
I root them luck, no matter what, except unless it's against the Wolverines, or whether it affects Michigan standings. But no, it's not reciprocated all the time. Oh well, maybe we'll get a cameo. See if she wants to refute it.
Hold on. Wait a minute.
All right. Are we getting anything on Mertz here?
If he has time. Hold on a second. Nothing.
6-0 Michigan in the third period in the hockey game over at Yost Ice Arena. Wolverines all over Arizona State in the season opener. So awesome. Yes. I like that.
All right. No one's seeing any breaking news about Graham, right?
No.
I have not seen anything.
All right.
About
And I'm going to go with what I got.
Texting Randy now. All right, so check this out. How's this? Now I don't know how we are with audibles later in the show. What do we look like in the last hour? What do we look like in the last hour?
We can always make room.
The number one player in the country.
So Steve, you now have a confession.
In my opinion,
you have a vague confession.
Yeah, he's the number one player in the country to me.
On the screen.
I said, but
hold on. I got to put you back on. I'm doing research. Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't seen. I mean, people assume he's playing, but we haven't. I don't think anything is official.
30 seconds to the top of the hour. Or open.
I got you.
Since we're doing this segment, I just want to make sure I got the latest. And I'm not going to get to it in time, so.
Yeah, because I'd assume if anything was really recent. There really is nothing.
Whoa. Whoa, yeah, we got to get him on. We got to get him on.
Yeah, we're in the open, by the way.
We're in the open.
We got to get him on. We got to get this kid on.
Sam, see on the right side of your screen, which says private chat. Send me a message. Send me the information, and we'll make it. We'll figure it out. I'm getting people all excited, Sam. Our viewers on Ticket
I'm
TV.
getting excited. Shit. I mean, shoot.
We're not on radio yet. No laws broken. No FCC violations getting you in trouble with Michigan Matt.
So I can have a shot? No. Just kidding. Just kidding.
If you want, you can join me at like 2 a.m. on the postgame show and do a shot out with me. I did one at the end of last postgame show. Signed off on the air, right? And then right on the video, and then I signed off the video.
2 a.m. Do I have it in me?
All right, Miz. I'm just assuming we're just about ready.
All right, guys, we are back on radio in 5, 4, 3, 2.
Time for hour number 2 of the KeyBank Countdown at Kickoff, and we always kick off hour number 2 talking about the opponent for the Michigan Wolverines. And this week, it's an opponent that Michigan is playing for the 69th time, but this team we have not actually seen on the football field since October 23rd. They are 1-0. They have played exactly one game so far this season. We are not exactly sure who's going to even be on the field for the Wisconsin Badgers, but we're going to take an educated guess. And to get us going, here is our guy, Steve Clarke.
All right, thanks, Ira. Look, there's more we don't know about Wisconsin than what we do know, but let's share the most pertinent stuff to Michigan fans first. Michigan has opened up as a 3-point favorite last Sunday, but that has completely flipped. The Badgers are now nearly a touchdown favorite in this one. One of the questions that people want to ask, of course, is Wisconsin a COVID-ravaged team? And at its peak, Wisconsin had 17 players, 13 staff members test positive. We know for certain that quarterbacks Graham Mertz and Chase Wolf, the number 2 and 3 number quarterbacks respectively, as well as the head coach Paul Chryst tested positive. That's probably 10 to 15% of the players over the past 3 weeks. Now, as for the staff, guys, there are 32 people listed on Wisconsin staff. That includes coaches, trainers, directors, even a graphic designer and an office manager. If that's the full office staff, 40% of that staff has it somewhat been restricted from duties, but not as long as the players have had. So it would appear that, things are a lot better than they were over the last couple of weeks. It appears now that they've only had one positive test like in the past, 12 days. So the number one question now is who's going to play a quarterback? And few people outside the program really know, but you go through some deductive reasoning and you think Graham Mertz is going to be eligible to play because he tested positive on the day after the blowout victory against Illinois in the opener, Saturday 24th. He's gone through that 21-day protocol. That doesn't necessarily mean that he could actually play. So according to the Big Ten COVID guidelines, last Saturday, a week ago, he was allowed to start a limited strength training and conditioning regimen that can progress each day. Then as he gets cleared through the doctors, he can do a little bit more and a little bit more. So at best, on day 19, he can practice. When was day 19? That was Wednesday. So most teams, they, take kind of like do Sunday for film, take Monday off, Tuesday they practice hard, Wednesday they practice hard, and then they start to dial it back on Thursday, walk through on Friday, and then the game and the trip for Wisconsin today. So I would think that Graham Mertz and Chase Wolf have gotten to see, at least a half a week's worth of practice. And along that with several others, probably got to be eligible at the earliest this past Wednesday as well. And for some players, it's easy to adapt. They can come right back in and play. And others, it's going to take a lot more time. And Paul Chryst, I think, honestly doesn't know which players are going to be able to take a lot of time and ones that can just get right back on the field and do their thing. One of the things that you can tell by all the news releases about how many people have come down with it in the Wisconsin program, we know for sure that at least 10 players are going to be out for the Michigan game because of that 21-day timeline. Which 10 players they are, we don't know. And, of course, are they the most important 10 players on the team or the most affordable 10 players on the team that could be taken out in this one? Only time's going to be telling. We're trying to figure this out, and I think in the next hour or two we're going to start to realize who's on the practice field and who isn't.
Yeah, we're going to find that out starting within the 2 hours before kickoff. So we're closer to that window. We're not quite there yet, but give or take in the next hour or so, and probably in our last hour of the KeyBank Countdown to Kickoff, we'll have more of an idea who will be out there for Wisconsin. But for argument's sake, Steve, take us through the offense as if they're all there and what you know.
Sure. So Mertz filled in for starter Jack Cohn because Cohn's got foot surgery, and Mertz did a fantastic job. I mean, this is the guy who was supposed to be like the Drew Henson of Wisconsin football, 5-star guy. Was going to be a 4-year starter. Hasn't worked out that way so far, but he did get to start in the season opener. And against Illinois, he threw for 5 touchdowns. It was 20 of 21 for 248 yards in that 45-7-0 rout. The rushing game, I think, was pedestrian compared to some Badger norms. And historically, Wisconsin replaces an all-time running back with a future all-time running back. But right now, I think it's kind of on the unknown. And you got 2 sophomores in Nakia Watson and Isaac Guerrero. They combined for 98 yards and 30 carries against Illinois. Not exactly impressive. Watson is your downhill runner. Guerrero is your speed guy. Now, we're also pretty familiar with Garrett Groshek. He actually led the team in that opener against Illinois with 70 rushing yards. Groshek mostly has been, used as a pass protector, a guy who gets the ball on screens as well as spell in for Taylor, which I think, was a disastrous move by Paul Chryst in the 2018 night game, Sam, in Ann Arbor. 9 times, though, in the last 10 years, Wisconsin has had a running back that either, was the Big Ten's first team or all Big Ten second team. And although it's very early, I think people who cover Wisconsin are wondering if any of these 3 are going to meet that standard. And I think most of them don't think so whatsoever. Now,
no, none of these guys are the caliber of back that they've had. Certainly not the caliber back that they just had last year, for sure. I mean, just
Jonathan Taylor.
Just a one-man record. I think you might recall when the Lions pick came up and said, why are we taking DeAndre Swift? Why are we not taking Jonathan Taylor? They said, oh, well, Jonathan Taylor can't catch the football. I saw Jonathan Taylor catching the football last year, Steve, and I saw him running all up and down the field against Michigan. Now, Garrett Groshek had some plays against Michigan, but that happens when you're the counter, where you're the off-speed pitch to Jonathan Taylor, right? So not nearly as effective, but here's what is the same, Steve. Up front, in both trenches, are going to be extremely tough matchups for Michigan today. No matter what the year, they always come with an offensive line that pounds you. And so that's the thing, that even with the rust of being off, I feel like that's something you can count on. The question is, are they going to be able to take advantage of Michigan in ways that teams the last 2 weeks have? It wasn't about the ground game for those 2 teams. It was about their ability to take advantage of Michigan on the perimeter, down the field. If you're Wisconsin, you certainly have to build that into the game plan, but to what extent? And I think if you're Michigan, as tough as Wisconsin is on the ground, you like it if they want to just line up and run the football. Even if they're successful, it's not a scenario, at least in theory, it's not a scenario where they light up the scoreboard quickly. It lends itself to you maybe still being in this game, even if you aren't, putting up big numbers yourself offensively, still lends itself to you being in this game a little bit later than a lot of people might expect.
So here's the deal, Sam. You've got Wisconsin now as an offense that's evolving. It used to be one-dimensional. Line it up, run the ball, and that's all you do, and have a caretaker at quarterback. Their quarterbacks have progressively gotten better as the years have gone by. And I think they do have talent at the wide receiving position now to complement a fairly decent quarterback. What you say about the offensive line is right. And although they got new guys in there, left tackle Cole Van Lanen, who's a second-team All-American last year, and you got a right guy, a guy on the right side named Logan Bruss. Both these guys are expected to be in the NFL. So there's not much of a concern about drop-off there. Wisconsin has been involved in plenty of blowouts on the winning side for them. They've got a lot of younger guys in there to get their shots and experience in. So I don't think the offensive line is the issue. I think the issue is with the running game. Will they be able to run it enough? And the thing is, Michigan's defense against the run hasn't been all that great. We know what Michigan's pass defense has been over the past couple of weeks. I have a feeling that Wisconsin's going to be able to do whatever they choose to do, but you'd like to see them suffer in one way so that, the Michigan defense can concentrate on what ails them the most. Take a look at the wide receiving and tight end position. I think it starts with their tight end, Jake Ferguson. He had a couple of touchdowns, 3 touchdowns in the season opener. They also got wideouts Kendrick Pryor coming back, as well as Danny Davis, who is being moved into slot. Certainly going to miss Quintez Cephas. And, of course, Jonathan Taylor, both playing in the NFL. Taylor with the Colts, and, of course, Cephas with the Lions. But basically, in all, you've got solid offensive line play. You got questions at running back, but enough at quarterback, considering that they're healthy and they're not going to Danny Vandenboom as the fourth-string quarterback, and a receiving corps that's solid as well. Wisconsin's offense, I think, cautiously optimistic in this one.
And that's the thing, Steve. If it's Vandenboom, of course, it's the question. As multi-dimensional as they've tried to become offensively, can you achieve that with Vandenboom? And then if it's Graham Mertz, will rust affect him? And the fact that they've been on the show for a few weeks, will they be able to dial it up like they did in week 1 is a big question, even with the struggles that we've seen from Michigan in the secondary.
I think Illinois tried to stop the run at all costs and make the new guy, Graham Mertz, a quarterback in the opener, beat them. And he did. He absolutely destroyed them. Again, 20 of 21, 248. Wasn't like long down and distance. It was just able to move the ball effectively and move those chains. And if Illinois is concentrating totally on the run, you can understand why a new group of running backs may have struggled a little bit at less than 200 yards rushing for the game. I don't know what Michigan's defensive philosophy is going to be in this one. Both sides of defense against the rush and the pass need a whole lot of work. I'm just trying to explain to you where Wisconsin is coming into this thing. And, of course, everything that I'm saying could be turned on its ear depending on who was a part of the COVID list. We just don't know.
Listen after the game for the Retirement Income Solutions Locker Room Wrap-Up Show for the Gem of the Game, brought to you by Lewis Jewelers on Sports Talk 1050, WTKA The Ticket, and on Ticket TV. Coming up next, we flip to the other side of the ball talking about the Badgers defense. Stay with us. This is the KeyBank Countdown to Kickoff live from Saline, Ypsilanti, and Ann Arbor on Sports Talk 1050, WTKA The Ticket, and on Ticket TV.
Clear on radio.
All right, I am trying to get Domanick Jackson booked for the show before we go off. He is the number 1 corner in the country in 2022, and I think he would be a top 10 player regardless of class. I think he'd be the number 1 corner in this class too. And so trying to get him to come on. His dad is a super duper diehard Michigan fan.
All right, I have to go feed the dogs, everybody. I'll be right back.
Is that the one whose mom is a Buckeye? And
his mom is a Buckeye, right?
Okay.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
Mom is a Buckeye.
All right, so you have that. Now, this is 2022?
2022.
Okay.
Yep.
So he hasn't made his decision. Sierra hasn't made his decision. You know, it depending on how these things go, Sam, this is, one of the things that you think about when you decide whether you're going to make transitions in the coaching staff.
Mm-hmm.
If you got solid recruits coming in,
it does affect your thinking for sure.
Yeah, just a bit.
For sure. Especially if you can get some of these 22s they have on campus locked up too. But it is a more than a fortuitous bounce to have these guys get together and decide they want to come on their own dime, of their own volition, at the same time, and kind of catch that mood, that vibe from one another. That's a powerful thing, man. It's a powerful thing. I don't know if it's what it will amount to, if it's not just the glow of them being together in the moment. But I think there's a chance that it could really lead to something in the coming. All right, hold on a second.
Looks like I got to change my power rankings. So while we're in transition, Illinois beat Rutgers 23-20.
Yeah, they kicked a field goal right down at the end. Rutgers is going to Rutgers. So Illinois is no longer the worst team in the league. That distinction belongs to?
I don't know anymore.
Minnesota.
Minnesota.
And then Penn State, I think. It would be Minnesota, then Penn State.
We're not playing Illinois. But how about Isaiah
Williams? You never know. We might play him on December 19th.
Isaiah Williams is playing for Brandon Peters. 104 yards passing. But guess what? The quarterback had 192 yards rushing.
But this isn't Juice?
No, this is a different Isaiah Williams.
The new Juice?
That's right. There's a lot of Isaiah Thomases and there's a lot of Isaiah Williamses.
Apparently.
But 2 of them played for Illinois, and this
10
Isaiah
seconds.
Williams.
Oh, standing by for radio.
192 yards rushing. 104 passing.
Here we go, back on radio in 5, 4, 3, 2.
Win the ultimate Bud Light Victor's Lounge tailgated home package courtesy of our friends at Bud Light. It's easy. Just go to WTKA.com/countdown and click for your chance to win. It's the ultimate Bud Light Victor's Lounge tailgated home package courtesy of our friends at Bud Light and your friends here at Sports Talk 1050 WTK The Ticket. And here on the KeyBank Countdown and Kickoff, it's time for the defensive side of our Wisconsin preview. So it's Meet the Badgers on the defense. What do you have, Steve Clarke?
Well, let's start up front, Ira. Let's go on the defensive line. Isaiah Loudermilk, he's a future pro. Guys like Loudermilk, Garrett Rand, unsung heroes because in their philosophy, they don't attack the quarterback. Their job is an unheralded one. They stuff on the running plays and they open holes to give running lanes for the smash mouth linebackers on passing plays. The glory guys, the guys who wear the medals, the guys, have the hair flowing, are the linebackers in this group. And it's the defensive line that makes them look really, really good. Badgers defense had a great pass rusher last year in Chris Orr and an outside linebacker in Zach Bond. Both of those guys are gone, but inside you're going to hear a lot from a guy either through radio or through television, a guy named Jack Sanborn. He is expected to be a first-team All-Big Ten performer, if not an All-American this one. The defense had their way with Michigan last year and basically had their way with a lot of teams. That defense had a 73% success rate on third down last season. So it is imperative that the Wolverines don't put themselves in third and long situations like they have done too often in the past couple of weeks. Otherwise, Michigan's defense comes onto the field. A lot of players returning into the secondary. One that won't is the headhunter Reggie Pearson, whose vicious hit and shot on Dylan McCaffrey last season got him kicked out of that game in Madison. He won't be there for this one. They have experience, though. None of them were on an All-Big Ten team last season, but that may change this year. Faion Hicks, Rashad Wildgoose, really good tandem. The Wolverines, I think, on offense, especially with this receiver core, has got to use their speed to get some separation if Joe Milton's going to be successful throwing down the field, because I think if the coverage is tight, I don't think you're going to see Joe throw it down the field in tight coverage. I think he wants to see a little bit more cushion in between so that he can feel comfortable. If they're playing them really, really tight through the first 3 seconds of the pass rush, then I think you may see Joe Milton take it off a little bit more or throw it down in a check down mode if he can get to it. Finally, Ira, special teams, and of course, Sam, I'm going to let you comment. We don't normally talk about special teams unless it's worth talking about. It is worth talking about Wisconsin. They were 12 of 18 on field goals last year, near the bottom of the NCAA in punting. Wisconsin got a Division III transfer to punt for this season. And one moment he's, kicking 60-yarders, and the next moment he's like getting 32-yarders. So it's sort of hit and miss with the punting game. We know that Brad Robbins could flip the field based on last week's 55 yards per punt average. Not so necessarily with the Wisconsin Badgers. Sam?
Yeah, so I go back to the trenches, man. I mean, this is a big physical front. That's got a tough matchup for this offensive line. Just, no other way to slice it, especially with the injuries. I would be, again, I'm giving you my opinion, I would be surprised if Jalen Mayfield plays today. And my expectation, I don't expect to see either Jalen Mayfield or Ryan Hayes today. And then when you add to it, again, that's just my expectation. I'm not giving you a report. But when you look on the inside and you see some of the struggles they've had at those positions, I could see why last week they would say with our two maybe mainstay guys, the guys that maybe we have the most confidence in out, we don't want to compound the issue, the inexperience issue, by adding youth to it, by playing some of the younger guys. But I think they're to the point now, Steve, even with the matchup issue, with a big physical front that they have with Wisconsin, I'm still saying Michigan has got to go with more of a rotation on the inside to see what some of those young guys can do, to see what a Trevor Keegan can do at guard, to see what maybe a Zach Carpenter can do at center. And the thing about Zach Carpenter, I know he was working through a little something in the summer, Steve. I'd be interested to see if he has all his strength back. That's a guy that bench pressed 225 pounds 39 times last year. So I don't know what kind of player that makes him, but I know it makes him a strong guy, a guy that when you're matching up with some of these big physical guys up front that we're talking about with Wisconsin, makes a real big difference. And, I would, even with the inexperience, I would still risk it and hope that you can augment your running game by getting to the perimeter with maybe some quick passing game, and then hope that Joe takes another step. If you go back and look at the film, even with the misses that we saw from Joe Milton last week, I am telling you. And I had Al Borges, he went over, we noticed patterns. We see plays that he missed against Michigan State that he hit against Indiana last week. Floods that he missed versus Michigan State, he hit versus Indiana. Cover 2 recognition, knowing where the holes in the defense are. A couple of times he was late getting there, but he knew where he was supposed to go with the football. Just needed to get there quicker. You hope that maybe that sped up clock comes in this week, and maybe you can help speed it up as a coaching staff by simplifying things, giving more half field reads, so they don't have to process the entire field, getting rid of the football a little quicker. These are things that can maybe still help them have some success even against a better defense.
So, Sam, I like your philosophy on the interior of the offensive line. I'm just going to disagree with the timing just a bit. You need a win. And if the coaches feel that the older guys are going to, the most likely going to do it, that they don't have a lot of experience, but this is going to get them one game closer to getting it, that's fine. And if Michigan ends up losing this game to Wisconsin, there's a whole lot of season left to find out what you have in your younger guys and getting them experience. I also have to wonder where the veterans are going to feel like after being 1-3, if that is indeed the case. And I think at that point, there are going to be a lot of evaluations going around about attitude and execution at the same time. And you could see how some of your younger guys perform in the games up the road.
Listen after the game for the Retirement Income Solutions Locker Room Wrap-Up Show, brought to you by Retirement Income Solutions and presented by Alta Equipment Company. You hear it on Sports Talk 1050 WTK The Ticket, and you can watch it on Ticket TV. Coming up next, we play a little true false. Stay with us. This is the Key Bank Countdown to Kickoff on Sports Talk 1050 WTK The Ticket and on Ticket TV.
Yeah, you can ask questions. What you got?
Is the caller there?
Let's go to HB Hockey in
He wants you to break down Michigan's power play.
Yeah. Sam West.
Last I saw was 7-0, I think.
It's 8-1. Shutout of snaps.
They gave up a goal.
Pull him. Pull man out of the nets.
Disappointing.
Pull man out of the nets. Pull him out of the nets. No, pull him out.
How do I expect the secondary to do? Bro. Man. So I expect them to give other guys opportunities. I think that DJ Turner, I said this on the show, I think that DJ Turner is a kid that there was a lot of talk about in the offseason, a lot of talk about last year before the season began. I remember Jim shouting him out, a guy who at the very least brings you some attitude to the secondary. I like his demeanor as well. I mean, he was trained by Ray Buchanan. That doesn't automatically mean that he's an improvement, but I think you're at the point now where you try any alternative you have, and he seems to be healthy now. He didn't play in the first couple of games. I have to believe that's health related because he would at least be on special teams. And I had heard they had said he was working through some things. There's some question about where he was in the readiness scale, but he was fully ready last week. Why was he fully ready last week? Because he was on special teams. Why do I say he was fully ready? He was on special teams last week. He was jamming the gunner on special teams. So if he can jam a gunner, he can jam a receiver, right? I give him a shot and see what he can do. See if maybe he can play a few more balls in the air. And I think we have to calibrate our expectations. You don't go from the level of struggle that they've exhibited here in the first few games. You don't go from that to being real good. To me, I just would accept. I would think that most fans would, or at least should accept, them making a few of the plays that they missed last week. Maybe they grab one of the 4 balls they got their hands on as a defense. Maybe they get one fewer PI in a crucial situation, like they had on that 3rd down where receiver wasn't going to catch the football and there was a PI. A few of those plays gives you another couple of possessions offensively, and then the rest is up to the offense. We are, I think, in a year where the offense absolutely has to carry the defense. there are aspects of this defense, in my opinion, that won't be fixed in season. So, hey, I think that if the defense can get competency on the back end, especially with no Aiden, and in my opinion, I'm giving you my expectation. I don't expect to see Kwity Paye today. So if the back end can find competency after those struggles and without your two best pass rushers, on a front that hadn't been getting to the quarterback anyway, then you got to take that and then hope that your offense can carry you the rest of the way.
So we're back in radio in 30 seconds, and as a final from Yost, 8-1 Michigan over Arizona State. Straussman actually came 2 minutes and 26 seconds away from the shutout, but a power play go by Arizona State gave them the lone goal. Michigan back on the ice tomorrow evening. You listen to the game right here on the ticket with coverage starting at 6:30, so make sure you tune in for that. And we are back live on radio in 5.
And no, Sheldon, not for basketball.
Back in 5, 4, 3, 2.
Welcome back to the KeyBank Countdown and Kickoff on Sports Talk 1050, WTKA The Ticket, and on Ticket TV, brought to you by KeyBank, powered by Bud Light, driven by Brighton Ford, and supported locally by Wolverine Rental. I'll always love having fun playing with my guys here, playing a little true-false. And so I originally had a question for you here, which was that a true or false that Ohio State is playing its toughest 2-game stretch of the season between today and next week when they play Maryland and Indiana. But that obviously is now false, Steve Clarke, because they're not playing today against Maryland. But would that have been their toughest 2-game stretch of the season based on what we've seen to this point?
I'd say false, because I think Penn State's on a completely different trail. And not to really discount what Maryland has done, but I've seen Maryland play this game of destroying average teams and then playing against a fairly decent team and get their socks beaten off of them. I think Ohio State right now feels like they have 2 games to play in their season, and that's IU and Michigan. And Michigan just because they just want to play Michigan. But other than that, it's just, I think the toughest challenge for Ohio State right now is COVID. I think their biggest opponent off the field right now for the next 5 or 6 weeks is not to get into an epidemic. Imagine if they played Maryland as scheduled and a bunch of players came down with COVID from Ohio State right before the IU game. Would they have canceled that game against IU, or would they have tried to play it anyway with just healthy players and then wound up getting upset because IU ended up being somewhat decent? This is something that Ohio State doesn't have to worry about because Maryland came clean.
What was the true false, Ira?
Well, it was just a conversation about that. Would this have been the toughest 2-game stretch of the season for Ohio State before this Maryland game obviously got canceled today? As next week they play Indiana. So
how do you figure out the true false? Ira feels better about his Terps.
Then what? That it'd be the year? Absolutely.
Better than you did headed into the season.
Oh, there's no question about it. There's a couple of teams, and I think we talk about our team, and we spend a lot of time talking about it, but there's a couple of teams that you would very much the opposite opinions, I think, of what you thought your season was going to be. And one of them is on the positive side for Maryland fans. They found their quarterback, and they're much more positive about their team than they were. Even after week 1, they got deep pants in week 1. But you look, and what we've learned is you don't take a lot out of week 1. You have to go forward from there. But the other one is the flip side, and we've talked about Penn State, but this stat came up today. I just want to bring it up to you guys. I don't know if you've seen it yet, but Penn State, they were 7th in the preseason AP poll. They're the 4th team to start 0-4 after being ranked in the top 10 of the preseason AP poll, and the first since 1984 Pittsburgh. They've lost their first 4 games of a season for just the second time in school history after losing to Nebraska today. That is a remarkable stat.
We're going to see a lot of these type of stats. Like, Michigan could be 1-3 since the first time since 1967 or something like that. All of this gets thrown out the window in my book because you're not playing a non-conference schedule in which you're beating a lot of teams up. So, only won 1 game, or they've, been winless so far. It's November. A Penn State team has never been winless through the month of November since 1911 or something like that. Well, yeah, he didn't play until late October either. So a lot of these statistics, I just throw it out because it is a weird, weird season. But what is true, though, is what I was saying an hour ago. You have a Penn State team that thought they were going to potentially win the Big Ten championship, and through 2 games, it was taken out from under them, and they have responded that way by the way they've lost to Maryland and the way they've lost at Nebraska. They're not interested. They're not interested in playing anymore.
Here's what I wonder. I wonder how much of a mulligan Penn State fans are willing to get. I never have really gotten a real good feel for how they feel about James Franklin over there, Steve. I don't know, and I don't know if you guys have. He's beaten Ohio State once. They've accomplished some things there. He's had some good recruiting classes, but I've never really gotten kind of a feel for if they really like him, if they really feel like he's their guy. Is this 0-4 start something they're going to look at as an opportunity to be like, okay, yeah, let's get rid of that guy? Were they just waiting for the chance, or do they really like James Franklin over there?
So it's the same way it is here, Sam. You've got a certain segment of the population that thinks James Franklin is great and he's going to lead them. And you got another segment of the population that with each loss goes back and says, that 1 year where they blocked a kick and got lucky and beat Ohio State? James Franklin has ridden that for 5 years now. And that's the way they feel. They feel like it was one lucky game. And, let's tell the truth. The year after that, Penn State nearly beat Ohio State in Columbus. But it's true. Franklin's got the one win, and he has ridden that all the way to where he is today. And there's a lot of people that says, man, when is he going to be looked at for how he is coaching today or the previous year? So there's a certain segment of Penn State fandom that is certainly feeling that way.
Real quick, we made the picks earlier in the show on the night game injury update. George Karlaftis has an ankle injury, is available if necessary. Rondale Moore with his undisclosed injury is out.
I am not cheering injury. I'm cheering my pick, not injury. Can we make that clear? Because, I love George. I think George is a ball player. But I'm cheering my pick, Northwestern.
It's all right.
Yes.
He wins today. I'll take a one-game lead next week. That's all right.
I'm sure you will. Steve. All right, true or false, Sam Webb. I don't think we've ever been able to say this about a team at this stage of the season in November, but Wisconsin is the best one-win team in America.
I gotta go with true. I don't know what is the other one-win team in America. I don't know.
Well, there are a lot of one-win teams. There's no other 1-0 team.
1-0
in America.
That's what I mean. I don't know any other 1-0 teams out there. But I think so. They were very impressive in week 1. I think that their fans, not that they cheer injury, but I think that they were actually excited about the opportunity to see Mertz with Cone out. I think. And he looked like, wow, as much as we were talking about Joe Milton after week 1, those people were like, oh my God, he's the next coming. He has arrived. This is the highest ranked quarterback in Wisconsin history. He played like it. Didn't he have 1 incompletion, Steve? Wasn't it 1 incompletion in that game? So, based on that, you would say, yeah, I wonder what they'll look like today. But look, if you just look at Wisconsin on an annual basis and what they have grown that program into, there are things that you just count on. They are going to get after it in the trenches on both sides. They're going to have a good running game. It is just, waking up and the air you breathe and the water you drink. As sure as that, Wisconsin is going to have those things. If you throw a quarterback on top of that, a playmaking quarterback on top of that, then there is reason in Madison to dream big. And I think that's what they're doing. I think that's what they should be doing right now. And I don't think that Michigan ever should have been favored in this game. I wonder what the scouts were looking at, what the odds makers were looking at. Maybe they knew something about Graham Mertz that we didn't know, Steve.
Well, they're looking at the quarterback situation. They're also looking at Michigan being at home. They're looking at the fact that Michigan wasn't expected to beat Wisconsin at home a couple of years ago in the 2018 night game. They weren't expecting Michigan to beat Notre Dame in the 2019 game. It's all a little bit different. You don't have 110,000 fans backing them at the same time. But, Wisconsin is a talented team. The big question for me is they're rested, but are they sharp? And I think that's what everybody has to wonder about. Are they the best, one-win team in the country? Oregon might have a reason to argue against that, but Wisconsin may still be the best one-win team, even if they lose today. against Michigan. They still may be the best one-win team in the nation. So that's how I see it right now.
Listen after the game for the Retirement Income Solutions Locker Room Wrap-Up Show for the offensive play of the game, brought to you by the Ticket's real estate partner, Matt Dejanovic. You'll hear it on Sports Talk 1050 WTK The Ticket, and you'll see it on Ticket TV. Coming up next, a little more true-false with my guys Sam Webb, Steve Clarke, and a little help for the dog. Stay with us. This is the KeyBank Countdown to Kickoff on Sports Talk 1050 WTK The Ticket and on Ticket TV.
That's both of them, isn't it? That's Murray, and that's both of them.
Yeah, it's both of them. They're both at the window now, barking out the window.
I was going to say, who's knocking on the door?
Nobody. We even we put a piece of tape over the stairwell up by the 3 steps up at the front door, so as to tell people to don't come in. They don't knock. They bark at whoever's walking down the street.
Yeah, so we won't have Domani and Randy on the show, but we'll have them on the site. But
okay.
They sounds like
say hi to our buddy real quick. We got during a commercial break here. We'll say hi to Joe.
Everybody Fox.
It sounds like there was a media member. A media member went over to the hotel stalker wise and was pushing the kids on where they're going to be watching the game together. So that's why they won't. They're like, hey, we just don't want to do any interviews right now. Some guy was here ragging us about where we're going to be watching the game. So
I defend stalking charges.
Freaky Jason Stalker guy.
Steve, I got a little something for you today if this works.
Sure.
Remember the Silver Fox stuff?
Yeah.
Uh-oh. Wait, I got to find it.
I want you guys to close your eyes and listen to audio separated at birth, Steve Clarke and Tom Rinaldi.
It's not working. Yes, Dennis, they were canines in stereo. The two of them barking against the window helps too. The sound bounces back and forth.
Did that work?
Ann Arbor.
No, unfortunately not.
Oh, wait.
Special day.
Oh, no, Steve.
Here we go.
Steve is Tom Rinaldi.
College football.
Did it not work?
Didn't hear it.
Let's try one more time see if I can make this happen.
There we go. So if you share the screen, it should work out. Oh, got it.
Silver Fox. Mom.
You guys are striking back. Didn't work. Steve, your audio separated at birth with Tom Rinaldi.
That's great. I didn't know I was such a passionate, caring,
Silver.
thoughtful.
We're gonna have to start having you do essays, Steve. Game day essays.
Yeah, we got to find a tragedy for you to talk about. Oh,
I think we have one. I think we have one.
Point.
I was telling Joe.
You gotta
Steve,
get
I was
that-
telling Joe. There was a rabbi back in D.C. who was a spitting image visually as Johnny Bench, but he sounded like Joel Myers, the old broadcaster who I think still does games on like the Bobcats or I don't know whoever it is, the Pelicans in the radio or something. But he sounded like Joel Myers. So if you close your eyes, he sounded like Joel Myers. So I had a football play-by-play guy doing stuff at synagogue. But you looked at him, he looked like Johnny Bench. It totally threw me off.
Hey, Ira, real question for you real quick. Is there, when the video feed is all done, can people see all the comments from the different platforms?
No, I believe if you watch on Facebook, you see the Facebook comments. If you watch it on YouTube, you see the YouTube comments.
Yeah, unless we specifically highlight them.
And then if we put it on the screen, then everybody sees what we put on the screen.
Right. So if I send someone the YouTube link, they'll only see the YouTube comments.
Correct.
Gotcha.
All right, stand by. We're back in radio in 5, 4, 3, 2.
Welcome back to the KeyBank Countdown and Kickoff, brought to you by KeyBank, powered by Bud Light, driven by Brighton Ford, and supported locally by Wolverine Rental. And a little more true-false with my guys, Sam Webb and Steve Clarke, as we're broadcasting live on Sports Talk 1050, WTKA The Ticket, and on Ticket TV. And so I'm going to go to Sam on this one first. So the state of Michigan football, so not Michigan, like University of Michigan, just the state of Michigan. So we're talking about Michigan, Michigan State, and the Lions.
Right.
This year is worse than 2009 in a year where Michigan went 5-7, Michigan State went 6-7, and the Lions went 2-14. So true or false, Michigan, the football in the state of Michigan is worse than in the dreadful year of 2009.
I would say yes. I would say yes to have all these teams as down as they are. Finally, the Lions are looking like I expected them to look. I just wish they had to look like that every single week. But Michigan is the team that you didn't expect to be where it is. I hate to, to make them be the reason that this is the worst. But, for them to lose to that Michigan State team, as bad as that Michigan State, it's one of the worst Michigan State teams I've seen. They found a way to beat Michigan is just, it's why I keep saying it's up there with App State, because Michigan State is freaking terrible. And my call about how bad Michigan State is was not off. Just I had it wrong about Michigan in that game. I don't know if it was because they overlooked them or because Michigan just isn't nearly as good as I or we thought heading into the season. Maybe it's a combination of the two. But that Michigan losing to Michigan State and being where they are right now, yes, combined with what you see typically from a Lions team and what you've seen the majority of my lifetime from Michigan State, put those things together, it makes it the worst.
Any follow-up?
So I'm going to break this down and do the comparison chart thing. You got the Lions, who I think are better in 2020 than they were in 2009. The Spartans are probably worse. And Michigan, well, in 2009, they at least won thrillers at Notre Dame or against Notre Dame and a thriller against IU, but they finished 1-7 in Big Ten play. For those reasons, I'm going to say it's false. 2009 was worse.
All right, we're going to continue this misery conversation going. Steve, true or false? Football in the state of Michigan at the moment is worse than football at the moment in North Jersey. And we now can add in that Rutgers lost by 3 points today to Illinois.
Yeah, so you're going to start driving me to drink if you keep questions up like this, Ira. The Jets are winless. The Giants are 2-7. And even though the Rutgers football team is improved, they're still 1-3. The answer is false. Football in the state of North Jersey is worse than it is in Michigan. Take it to the bank, Sam.
I agree. I absolutely agree with this. I said, this is another thing I said earlier in the season. Look, you lose to a North Jersey team, you need to be questioning your existence as a football team this season. Like, should we play? If you lose to a team in North Jersey, you probably should hang it up the rest of the season. Now, if you lose to a team that lost to a team in North Jersey, should you hang it up too? That's the question that I find myself asking these days, Steve, because as we know, Michigan State wound up losing to Rutgers, a team from North Jersey. They just happen to have. Now, here's the silver lining for those teams, at least the NFL teams. Man, you look over the horizon, you're bad enough. This is a great year to be one of the worst teams heading into the draft, because there are a couple of quarterbacks, especially number one. I think Trevor Lawrence is destined to be a big-time player. And if you can wind up with that pick, it's worth sucking as far as I'm concerned. That's why I wanted the Lions to suck this year.
We got this message from Linda, comment on Ticket TV. Well, it's 2020, which is the worst year in this century so far. So why should our teams be any different? We're living in an alternate reality. And so very disappointing. Oh, wow. And we got a message in here from SHB 8man15, Michigan alum from North Jersey. Brutal combo. So there you go. That's kind of the Lions combo that you have there, Sam. And all right, so a tougher one for you. True, false for Sam Webb. Jim Harbaugh will be the coach of the Michigan Wolverines in 2021. True or false?
It's just no.
I'm not talking about the rest of the staff. Just Jim.
I'm going to go with true. Because I think that any speculation about him doing something different or Michigan doing something different is analysis that is speculative, is perception based on the scenario, not rooted in anything from Ward Manuel or Jim. I don't think that either of those have contemplated a future, at least yet, without the other. Now, what I will say to qualify it, I've never said never with Jim Harbaugh going back to the NFL. Would he be more open to considering it after this season, I don't know. I think it's reasonable to ask that question. But if you're asking me right now to predict, will he be back next year? I'll say true. He'll be back next year.
I think without much question, it's true. And that's the difference between now and 2014, that it seemed like it was inevitable that Brady Hoke, wasn't going to make it, and a sense of who would ever, take this job. But, we're not there with Jim Harbaugh yet. I think some people are definitely decided they're done. The question is Jim done?
Right.
Contract is coming up. I sense a guy who is not looking to take the top dollar. I just think he's looking to see where he's going to be most comfortable with. And if he was not comfortable at Michigan, they would not be recruiting as well as they have been in 2021 and for 2022, Sam. So, I mean, if your heart is still in it, and I think he's not looking for top dollar, and I think it really doesn't matter, because in the grand scheme of things, what's a few $1 million between a $150 million athletic budget? I don't think money comes into play here. I think it gets a lot of people upset. I don't know why. I think a few $1 million separating a 9-year million guy and a replacement at $6 million just doesn't mean a whole lot. So I expect Jim Harbaugh to be coaching in 2021 at Michigan.
I do think finances this year does come into play. Michigan has a $60 million deficit because of COVID. I do think that does factor into the conversation at some point, somewhere along the way. I do have one more true false for you before we get out of this segment, but I have an update. My wife just saw the Wisconsin bus drive by. No update yet on whether Graham Mertz was on the bus or not. I should tell her to stop the bus and look, but they're on their way to the stadium. My guess is then within the hour, so probably around the beginning of our final hour on the show, we will see if, towards the end of our show, we'll find out if Graham Mertz is playing in the game or not. All right, final true false of the segment. True or false, Sam Webb, the University of Michigan is a basketball school.
False. I understand that.
You're right, it's a hockey school.
Yeah, it's easy to let the emotion of the moment overwhelm us. I think it's a basketball school too. I mean, you want to throw a 2 on there? Okay, I'll go for that. But to use what we are seeing Michigan go through this year to eclipse what is a rich and deep and storied football history, I think is an overreaction, which is typical of a disappointing scenario like we're seeing. That doesn't mean that I don't see what's happened thus far on the football season for what it is. Extremely disappointing and not a place that Michigan should be at this point. I mean, Michigan should not be a 1-2 football team losing to a bad Michigan State team. I won't. There's no sugarcoating that or spinning that. It is what it is, but Michigan is still a football school and a basketball school too.
Actually, a baseball school and a softball school too. Go, Steve.
Hey, look, I don't want to minimize the efforts of Juwan Howard, his recruiting, success on the basketball court, or anything about the Michigan basketball program. But to me, this is simple. Michigan fans would trade basketball success for football success. And I'm just going to ask, bottom line, going to ask the two guys who are in front of me, if I was to do an audit on the economics of both the radio station and Sam's business, I think I'd find out very quickly whether it's a football school or a basketball school.
No freaking doubt. And understand the emphasis there so you can pick up what I want to be saying right now. No freaking doubt.
We're all just having a little fun here on the KeyBank Countdown to Kickoff.
I want to echo the sentiment. Look, you know me, huge Michigan basketball fan. The richest fan experience of my life was watching the Fab Five. The richest experience of my professional career. Ira, you know this. Following the team on that 2013 basketball run. So I am basketball diehard. I just think that most fans don't have them on equal footing. I do. They're equal to me. And like,
but Sam, there's no question. Michigan goes on a college football playoff run. Michigan goes to Indianapolis. Yeah, there's no question.
Yeah, what Juwan has done has been amazing. But for most fans, you're right, Steve. Football here, basketball here.
Listen after the game for the Retirement Income Solutions Locker Room Wrap-Up Show for the drive of the game, brought to you by Brighton Ford. You'll hear it on Sports Talk 1050 WTK The Ticket, and you'll see it on Ticket TV. Coming up next, hour number 3 kicks off with our strategy breakdown, and this week in Michigan football history. Stay with us. This is the KeyBank Countdown and Kickoff on Sports Talk 1050 WTK The Ticket and on Ticket TV.
Clear on radio.
All right, I got to go grab some batteries for this light real quick. Hold on a second.
All right, Joe, here we go. I had a couple minutes, all right?
Do it.
So, Joe, you don't have your number one co-counselor with you. It's obviously the biggest case in your career. You walk in the courtroom, the lights are on, the cameras are there, and you looked at your defendant, and he smiled. What was going on in your head?
Absolutely spot on. Tom Rinaldi Clarke.
Dennis, I didn't neglect hockey. I said hockey too.
Need tissues.
Me too, Miz. Me too. He was trying to break me down.
7 days after the monumental court case, his number one co-defendant died in a senseless but brutal jaywalking incident. Irony.
Don't you love that when they're really looking for one of those things, that when they can't find a tragedy, they knock on the neighbor's door. Did your dog die by any chance? Anything? Yeah.
We're going to be accused of being very insensitive to people who are really hurting, Joe.
Yeah, that's probably true. Ira, what do you think about our Masters? DJ's running away.
It's been fun to watch. I've been thoroughly enjoying relaxing. I honestly, a couple times today, I was like, oh yeah, there's a pregame show at 3:30. There's football being played. At one point, I was like, I got a text or whatever it was. I'm like, oh yeah, there are football games going on right now. So I checked the scoreboard to see what's going on in the Big Ten, but I didn't watch because when the early coverage of the final part of round 2 was on, ESPN put that on. And then as soon as that was over, I had to do a couple things, so I put on. But as soon as I was done doing that, I put on Masters.com and I watched, featured groups or whatever for a couple hours. Then at 1 o'clock, I flipped back onto CBS, and I was watching it in here while I was doing the beginning of the show. But now I've got Northwestern Purdue on the screen while I'm enjoying it. It's going to be fun tomorrow because most of the NFL games, over half the games are in the 4 o'clock window, and they set it up so it would be after the Masters is over. So don't have to worry about missing a whole lot of NFL football stuff while I watch golf. Excited about that. And for those that are asking, halfway through the first quarter, Northwestern is up 7-0 on Purdue.
Such a shame.
So, Joe, you're the one that wanted to try this out. So I want you guys to close your eyes, and I want to see if this works perfectly for you guys, okay? So here we go. Nothing means nothing.
This is welcome to the KeyBank Countdown to Kickoff on Ticket TV. We are joined now by Tom Rinaldi and Macho Man Randy Savage, which should make for a very interesting conversation. And if they need legal counsel, they have the Silver Fox Joe Simon with them too.
Miz, you had a wonderful life.
Yeah.
And somewhere down that road, she left you. Not not twice. At least 3 times.
3 times, yeah.
I believe it was to Sting.
Broke my heart.
She eventually did end up with Lex Luger, so.
What is your thoughts on the lovely Miss Elizabeth?
Nothing.
And what she did to your heart?
Well, Tom, yeah. Nothing means nothing, and that's why I've got the sensational Sherry by my side, yeah. We go into the top, the cream, yeah, rises to the top, yeah.
We need to take this on the road.
You got to add this in your repertoire. There was one point where the Macho Man would occasionally just kind of get quiet. Then he would go, right there.
Quiet Storm. Linda, what do you know about the Quiet Storm? Look at you. I'm impressed, Linda.
Linda brings out the Quiet Storm part whenever I, lose my voice or whatever. All right, we're coming back from break from the Open as well in a moment.
Yeah.
Sheldon, no.
PG, man.
We will not put that message on the screen.
Oh, Sheldon, no.
We will leave that one there.
PG,
And I
man.
can.
PG.
I actually could delete the comment, but I'm going to leave it
No,
there.
I'll leave it there.
That should stay.
Let the Facebook world
I want
see.
to find it.
Dogs are about to go crazy.
Oh boy.
My wife just got home.
Well,
and we're back in 5, 4, 3.
The dogs are just they're excited for the silver fox.
Yeah.
But seriously though, we're back on radio in 5, 4, 3, 2.
Hour number 3 of the Key Bank Countdown to Kickoff, which means we're about 2 hours, a little over 2 hours until kickoff between Michigan and Wisconsin at Michigan Stadium. And when we get to this point of the show, we bring on our guy, Joe Simon, the Silver Fox. Every Friday on the Michigan Insider, we have our strategy preview segment with Joe Simon. And then every Saturday, he helps us with our final hour, helps us kick off our final hour of the show, talking about what he saw last week, what he's watching for this week. Good afternoon, Joe Simon. Good evening, Joe Simon. How are you from the very loud Weintraub house?
Doing well. It's good to be with you guys as always.
So what do you have for us this week? As we head into the 4th game of the Michigan football season, now 1-2 on the year, following the disappointing loss in performance last week at Indiana.
Critically important game. One thing that we didn't get to yesterday morning, and one thing I want to talk about now, is to know where we're going. In the spirit of that, I want to look back on where we've been. You know, I think that we're paying the tax, if you will, for the way that the program has been being built in the last 5 seasons. So we've never had a quarterback that came up through the program as the starter until this year. We've gone through transfers. We've lost recruits. We haven't been able to retain. And so now here we are in a situation where we have a younger team. We're a bit depleted, and we have a quarterback that hasn't quite made the same jump that we wanted him to have made through that development process. If Mertz plays, by comparison, you have somebody who's also a first-year starter who looked like a world beater in one game. And so I think it's fair to say that this game holds a very special significance for Michigan.
I think you're exactly right. I think that I personally expect Graham Mertz to play. You look at the other side with Joe, and it can serve as a cautionary tale as much as we build him up. And he's a very, very talented guy. I think we see the pitfalls that can come with making grand assessments from initial success. I mean, teams adjust, and how do you adjust to the adjustment? And we see Joe and Michigan's offense going through the process of adjusting to the adjustment. Michigan has seen some film. Now, how much good will that do them is a different question, Joe. When you look at Michigan's secondary and the struggles they've had and some of the issues they might have up front. But how does he adjust to teams now that they've seen him a little bit? That'll be an interesting question if indeed Graham Mertz is a quarterback today.
So we've got a credibility contest going on as well as a football game. Michigan's credibility took a major hit against Michigan State. They acquitted themselves at times fairly well at Indiana, but another blow. But this one will be a severe blow in my view. Wisconsin's don't have their sea legs. They haven't been playing in game action for a while. They're going to have a number of players out. If we can't take them now, then when kind of mentality. I know we're depleted too. We have injuries as well, but we've had probably more practice time than any opponent we've played so far. Also, our record over our last 18 games is pretty poor. I think we're 10-8. So it's a credibility contest. We are going to have to lay it out there. And Sam, in terms specifically now on Milton, we talked yesterday about open up the perimeter. I think it's a very important thing for us to do in this game. And I also think there are some things on the defensive side of the ball that I'd like to, if we have some time, to talk about that as well. But this is really a credibility contest more than anything else. We are going to be a lot of viewership, I suspect, on this game, and we just have to lay it all out there.
Look, I I said earlier in the show, Joe, and I want to know if you agree with this before we get to talking about the defense. If they lose this game, how they lose it is important. Like if you get crushed in this game, I think it speaks to your credibility question. Wisconsin's a good football team. They have an advantage on both lines of scrimmage heading into this game. If both teams play their best, you would still give the edge to Wisconsin. I could see that happening. But if they get crushed in this game, you do start to ask, what can this team improve on? How on track? What is on track for this team this year? What does it get them if they get crushed this week and lose, sort of in a decisive kind of way for the third week in a row?
Sam, I think you phrased this beautifully well, how they win or lose, or particularly how they lose if they lose, because really the coaching credibility is at issue. So if we really come out and I believe great coaches can achieve first downs for a team. I believe great coaches can get a 3-and-out for a team. I believe that we can do things on the chalkboard that produce results on the field. That can't last for every play for 60 minutes of football, but it can last in situations. I haven't seen that yet, and we're going to need that here, particularly defensively. So when you talk about how we lose, Sam, if our defense stands up, if we have hats flying to the ball, if we keep these guys mostly in check and lose, our credibility goes up. If we have a game like we've had the last couple of weeks where we just don't seem to have an answer and we seem hapless, that credibility goes down, maybe irreparably down. And on offense, I think we're going to have the most diverse game plan that we have had this season. We're going to have to be complete, and we're going to have to see something. And I'm not talking about junk plays, and I'm not talking about style points. I'm talking about take what this offensive line, which is patchwork right now, what do they do best, and coach around that.
Yeah, it's a tough question to answer with talking about what do they do best with as multiple as I think they're going to be with personnel. I think we're going to see them give other guys opportunities. What I want to see is I don't expect them to be able to run it at Wisconsin. I mean, I'm just trying to be real with you. I don't think they're going to be able to line up and knock Wisconsin off the football. So if that is your expectation going into the game, what's your counter? What do you have? Because while I think most of the success rests on the arm and on the legs of Joe Milton, it can't all be on him. You got to give him some relief, some help, something, some semblance of a run game, even if it's not traditional, hand it off and try to get downhill running the football. Some other way to get that element in the offense. How do you achieve that? To your X's and O's question, Joe, I think is a big question in this game.
Funny you use the word counter because I think that's the only way we're going to be able to run in this game is through counters. I think some misdirection in the running game could be successful if it is set up by the perimeter game that you and I hope we're going to see. And I also do think that this line last week was effective in pass protection. And I think that is a good thing that we have going on. And so what we do with our pass game, I think, can set up some effective running. Also, I have not seen a screen pass to my eye this year at all. We've seen a little bit of wide receiver screen in game one, not much in the last two. But I don't think I've seen a screen at all, something we didn't do very well last year. I'm not sure we're going to see that tonight.
Yeah. I think it may sound like I'm beating on a dead horse here, but I think if you go back and you watch the film, you'll see what I'm talking about. As much as I'm talking about the need to hit the perimeter, they tried it at times, and the blocking on the perimeter was bad last week. And saying that on the heels now, and that's 2 weeks, saying that on the heels of the Minnesota game where we shouted it out, Joe. It was so good in week one. So it has to be a two-way street. Yes, we're saying from a strategic and coaching perspective, augment this run game. Give them some perimeter pieces, understanding that That might be limited too. We just think that it'll be less limited in trying to run between the tackles, but the players are going to have to help out as well and get on their horses blocking like they did in week 1, because too many missed blocks on the perimeter. Maybe if some of those plays had been successful, they would have felt like, hey, we could do this more. But because those plays were getting blown up too, I think we saw them go to that well and then not go back to it.
So I'm seeing a lot of offense and defense from good teams where they're playing loose and with confidence. And because you're seeing Michigan making a lot of mistakes, they're playing tight. And when you're playing tight and making mistakes, man, you don't have any confidence. And so it's a kind of a paradox in nature, but that's got to be able to turn around, because you look at what IU's done in the last 2 weeks against Michigan and Michigan State defensively. They are loose, they are confident, and they're flying. And I think Michigan knows what to do, but I think they're thinking too much about it and are so tight and dialed in, they're just not able to execute as well.
You know, Steve, I think that's true for last week's game, but in the Michigan State game, and we actually illustrated some of this in my segment, we had guys that were not just playing with proper football leverage. They weren't playing with what seemingly with great football effort. It didn't look like they were playing tight. It looked like they were playing loose, like without attitude. And hats weren't flying to the ball. So Sam's point earlier about if we lose, how we lose is I really like the way you phrased that, Sam. First of all, I don't want to lose.
Right,
but
exactly.
Right. But if we lose, it's got to be that level of expectation, what we want to see, because that is a reflection of coaching, team chemistry, and team building. And that's what I mean about credibility. I'm talking long-term for the program. If we can't maintain that credibility, that's going to really hurt our recruiting. We've already seen some evidence of our recruiting taking a big hit in state when we just lost, I can't think of the young man's name.
Rayshon Benny.
Thank you. And I think that will only continue in the future. There's a lot of chatter going around throughout the country on our coaching staff.
Look, you said something about fire and passion, and we talked about this earlier in the show. I mentioned it to Steve and to Ira. Look, we saw some fire and intensity from Ronnie Bell and from Joe Milton. That they are captains, but I don't think it matters at this point, Joe. Whoever can bring that needs to bring, and it helps when it's your best players that bring that, right? Because I mean, it's easier to follow that when you're getting that from the guys that are producing on the football field too. That's easier to follow. So you actually need your best players to be a little rah-rah, to be a little emotional, to be a little fiery, and they got some of that. There needs to be more where that came from. Now the question is from those guys. And then the question is defensively, where does that come from in this game with Aiden Hutchinson, who was a large component of that? He's not going to be with them on the football field now. And very likely, even though Quiddy is not, that's not his demeanor, he does have that kind of presence. And Joe, I don't expect to see him. I'm not reporting that he's out. I'm just saying I don't expect to see him out there. So minus those guys, where is that going to come from? They need that. As much as they need the technical proficiency and to be more technically sound, they need someone to give them that fire too.
Sam, update real quick. Update from the field. Apparently, the pictures are coming out that Graham Mertz is on the field warming up for the game today. So that's going to answer that question. Joe, before we let you go, closing argument, counselor, and tell everybody about the law offices of Joseph A. Simon.
Here's my closing argument. I've always believed in college football that teams, players take on the characteristics of their head coach. All the guys that I'm friends with that played for Bo, they walk like Bo, they talk like Bo, they have his mannerisms. They still to this day, and what I'm seeing so far from Michigan players on the field this year is a troubling reflection. I don't know where it's coming from. I have some thoughts, but this is why I'm saying everything. This game means a lot more credibility wise than I think we give it credit for. I really want to see that swag and attitude. I don't care who's on the field, playing for that helmet, playing for Michigan, and playing with passion, no matter who's on there. If you get beat because somebody beat you man on man, can't really help that. But you can definitely control one thing in life, that's your attitude. And speaking of that, to that point, that's what we do at the law offices of Joseph A. Simon. We try to bring our best effort and attitude in all that we do. Criminal defense, primarily Washtenaw County, all surrounding counties. I'd normally be sitting right there across the street from Michigan Football Stadium with you all there getting ready for a night game, but here we are in a different environment.
Thank you, Joe. Appreciate it. As always, we will talk to you on Friday for your regular visit. It is now time for This Week in Michigan Football History. Here is our guy, Greg Dooley.
This Week in Michigan Football History.
Today we head back to November 14th, 1942, a very special day for the two most storied programs in college pigskin history, namely your beloved Wolverines and our friends from South Bend, Notre Dame. To understand the significance of this day 78 years ago, we first have to go all the way back to an incident in 1910 that impacted the college football landscape for decades to come. You see, Michigan was set to face the Irish on a football Saturday, November 5th, 1910, but there was a problem as the game approached. The folks in Ann Arbor took a hard look at Notre Dame's roster and learned that two key players were in their 7th year playing college football, and another was ineligible in his 4th season. The Wolverines filed an official protest to Notre Dame, and in the week leading up, the athletic authorities at both schools debated the rules, first with each other and then in the press. On the Friday afternoon, the day before the scheduled battle, the athletic directors met for one last try to settle the issue. Neither side backed down, and the Michigan's athletic director canceled the game literally hours before kickoff. Years later, the rivalry simmered off the field between icons Fielding H. Yost and Knute Rockne, fueling the fire and the refusal to schedule each other on the gridiron despite the proximity of our two schools. The bad blood would not heal for another 3 decades, and that brings us to this week in Michigan football history, namely November 14th, 1942, when the rivalry finally resumed. Michigan athletic director and head coach Fritz Kreisler arranged with Notre Dame's Elmer Layden for 2 games to be played with the Irish during the 1942 and 1943 seasons. The 1942 game was played in South Bend and pitted the number 4 ranked Wolverines against the 6th ranked Irish. Over 57,000 fans watched Notre Dame strike first, scoring a pair of TDs in the first half. Michigan countered with a pair of its own TDs, including a Wiley touchdown on a fake field goal, but trailed 14-13 midway through the game. But the second half was all Michigan, and the Maize and Blue rallied for 19 points in the third. All told, the Irish surrendered the ball 6 times on turnovers, and the visitors from Ann Arbor rushed for over 300 yards in the 32-20 win for the victors valiant. So once again, the axis of the college football world was restored, as the team who taught Notre Dame how to play football back in 1887 once again delivered a lesson, this time with a 32-20 beating as the regular meeting of the natural enemies resumed. So go blue, to hell with Notre Dame, beat the Badgers, and for more, check out mvictors.com and WTKA.com. For the Key Bank Countdown to Kickoff, this is Greg Dooley.
Listen after the game for the Retirement Income Solutions Locker Room Wrap-Up Show for the Gem of the Game, brought to you by Lewis Jewelers on Sports Talk 1050, WTK The Ticket, and on Ticket TV. Up next, What the Coach Said. You'll hear from Jim Harbaugh next. Stay with us. This is the Key Bank Countdown to Kickoff, live from Saline, Ypsilanti, and Ann Arbor on Sports Talk 1050, WTK The Ticket, and on Ticket TV.
Clear.
All right, so a couple of things. Let's go back, look at some of the comments. I saw a few in there. I don't care. I hear you on that. Zarek. I see one from Linda. Says, some QBs arrive fully formed like Graham Mertz and the Clemson QB. How do you say it, Steve? Uigio. I don't know.
Ulagalele.
Yeah, that guy. Chad Henne.
Ulagalele.
Milton has a long. I think the dynamics for those teams are different. You know, Chad Henne, first of all, Chad Henne was not fully formed out of the gate. I remember him going down to Notre Dame and struggling mightily. But you know what he had? He had Braylon Edwards. You know what else he found? A running game with Mike Hart. that year as a freshman. Helps a whole hell of a lot. Uiagalelei. Yeah, that guy has Travis Etienne. And you look at his, probably the most dynamic player in the country. Skill player, I would argue, with Travis Etienne. You got Amari Rodgers on the outside. I mean, you got proven offensive skill talent there. And Graham Mertz, maybe he's fully formed. I think it's hard to say after one game, but I can tell you one thing that he has that Joe doesn't, and that's a beastly offensive line. At least right now, we hope Michigan gets there.
So
Wisconsin has an offensive line that is ready to go.
So report coming from our friend, why am I blanking? Isaiah Hole. Both Graham Mertz and Jack Cohn are warming up on the field today.
Jack
Cohn. Jack Cohn. Wow.
Yes.
Jack Cohn is warming up.
Yes.
Wow.
So take that with whatever grain of salt you want to take it with.
So believe it or not, the most surprising thing to me is Cohn. That's never been brought up as somebody who would actually be off the bus. I expected Graham Mertz to be off the bus just because his window was finished on Wednesday. Day 19 was Wednesday. Didn't mean he was going to play, but he was certainly going to practice Wednesday afternoon and then find out if he was going to be good enough. I don't think they were ever not going to take Graham Mertz on the trip.
No, Linda, I don't think James Vandercreek, Boom Boom, Vanderboom, Boom, Baye, Matty Boom Boom, Leach, Dawson's Creek is going to play.
Boom Boom.
Linda's on fire today.
Well, she knew that that was kind of the whole thing that I was messing with Jamie earlier this week about James Vanderboom.
Yeah,
that sounds like a made up name. It's James Vanderboom, Boom, Matty Leach, Vandercreek, Dawson's Creek. Meet me down by the creek.
Denversky, we do interact with Periscope guests, just not in segment all the time. John Green, do we think more captains will help? No, I don't. I think
I think he was being facetious.
Oh, I got you.
Yeah, I think
I missed that. Sometimes tone is lost, especially that far after the fact. But I really don't care at this point who it is that steps up. If it's not, I just think the emotional rudders are probably guys that aren't your captains at this point, which is fine. As long as those guys step up and act like captains. Do the Pistons trade for Russ?
No,
they don't. No, they don't.
All right, we're coming back to radio here in a moment, guys. Update, by the way, from West Lafayette, 7-3 Northwestern. Early in the second. Back in radio in... Back on radio in 5, 4, 3, 2.
Win the ultimate Bud Light Victor's Lounge tailgate at home package, courtesy of our friends at Bud Light. It's easy. Just go to WTKA.com/countdown and click for your chance to win the ultimate Bud Light Victor's Lounge tailgate at home package, courtesy of our friends at Bud Light and your friends here at Sports Talk 1050 WTKA The Ticket. It's now time to hear a little bit of what the coach had to say, so we're going to start out. Here is Jim Harbaugh on how he feels about his offensive line.
He's doing really good. And there's somebody, you talk about, the conditioning levels at, such a high level and, just plays the whole game, really, really well. He's playing really good and getting better every single week. But, coverage skills and then physical play. I thought his physical play was really, really good. He made some.
And Miz, you can cut this one off. This is an old clip. I have a feeling we have some non-updated clips in there. So
my apologies there. That was Dexel.
Yeah, that was from last week. So you know what? It's okay. We're just gonna continue to roll along here on the KeyBank Countdown to Kickoff on Sports Talk 1050 WTK The Ticket, online at WTK.com. And instead of hearing what the coach had to say, I want to hear what you guys have to say about a couple of these topics. So we're gonna start. Sam, your thoughts just going into this game. Injuries are an issue. We'll get a little bit more into it in the next segment. But coming out of now 3 games in on the offensive line.
Yeah, it's a tough situation they find themselves in. Their best offensive lineman, and Jalen Mayfield, is back, and then he goes down to injury, and it throws in a shuffle. And the other guy that you really look to is the guy who had taken over a leadership role and was arguably their best lineman in Jalen Mayfield's absence. Ryan Hayes, he's out too. And I don't expect to see either of those guys. And so I look around and I watching the moves that they made last week, I understood them. But at the same time, I'm saying, hey, they have got to be willing to still, even if it means more inexperience out there, they still got to be willing to cycle some more guys in there because there was a couple of positions that struggled. I think they struggled at guard, at left guard at times. I think they struggled at center at times. You got some young guys that have shown some promise in practice. Might as well give them a few snaps in there because even though their mistakes might be inevitable, Steve, I just feel like their athletic potential being superior to the guys in front of them could allow them to maybe make a few more plays and a few more blocks as well. And another question I have and I expect that we'll see Trevor Keegan and or Zach Carpenter possibly in this game. I'm anticipating that. One move that I would like to anticipate, but I haven't heard anything about it, is why not see Joe Honingford at tackle? He's an older guy that had been practicing there. He's more of an athletic guy that they have playing tight end right now. And what use at this point? I mean, is he more useful to you as a second or third tight end or as a tackle on a depleted line? I think he would have more use for them as a tackle, Steve. Again, I haven't heard that they're thinking that way, but I think that would be an alternative that I would look at if I felt like I was still struggling up front.
You're listening to the Key Bank Countdown to Kickoff on Sports Talk 1050 WTK, the ticket online at WTK.com. We had a moment of technical issue with Steve. I want to see if Steve is back with you. Steve, are you back with us here?
Getting there. I missed most of the last 5 minutes, though, guys, so I'm sorry.
That's okay. We're going to continue along here talking about Michigan and staying on the offensive side of the ball. Sam, just now 3 games in, we've talked a little bit about it on the show, but where Joe stands now as he moves forward, quarterback in this team and trying to get over the hump and playing obviously better football.
It's tough. He's immensely talented. I think that Joe, I've said this before, my feeling on what he could be for them has not changed. I look at some of the games that they lost in the good seasons that they've had. You think 16, you think 17 against Ohio State. I think the biggest difference in those games is quarterback play. I think he's the kind of guy, he's the kind of talent that gets you over the hump, but he's not there yet. I mean, there's a maturation to it. And unfortunately for him and for them, his maturation isn't aided by having a proven guy at wide receiver. His maturation isn't added by having a defined and established offensive line. He's not assisted by a beastly defense that gives him extra possessions. There's a lot more on his shoulders than you would like for there to be at this point, but that's the job, right? So, I still believe that with the improvement that we saw from week 2 to week 1 to week 2, week 2 to week 3, as far as recognition of coverages, is encouraging. I think he took a step last week. We showed that, we detailed that in the video. Now he needs to take another. And then as a coaching staff, how can they help him? How can they help with him by augmenting the run game? How can they help him with simplification so he can get rid of the ball quicker? Maybe, some half field reads so he can process things quicker. Some of the things that just help him move at a quicker pace on the football field without rushing, if that makes sense to you. Though that's necessary because I think the team rises and falls with the offense, and that means they rise and fall with him. As unfair as that is to say that's the way it is, I still think it's possible that he can carry them to some victories in some games. He just wasn't able to do it over the first 3 weeks.
We're about 90 minutes till kickoff between Michigan and Wisconsin. We still have a couple more segments left on this show, so stay with us. Before we go to the break, a reminder to listen after the game for the Retirement Income Solutions Locker Room Wrap-Up Show, brought to you by Retirement Income Solutions and presented by Alto Equipment Company. And you'll hear it on Sports Talk 1050 WTK The Ticket, and you see it on Ticket TV. Coming up next, we're talking injuries and key matchups to watch in tonight's game. Stay with us. This is the Key Bank Countdown to Kickoff, live from Saline, Ypsilanti, and Ann Arbor on Sports Talk 1050 WTK The Ticket and on Ticket TV.
Clear on radio.
Thank you, Ms. That was my bad on that. So thanks for everyone for rolling with the punches, as I had a little issue with that, with some audio. And Steve, you doing okay? Seemed like we lost you for a minute.
I think so. I've heard most of the last 5 minutes. There's still a little jittering going on, but it's a little more solid now.
All right, we're going to do our injuries and the key matchups when we come back here.
How much time, Miz?
We still got another about 3 minutes.
All right. I'm going to exit for a moment, and I'll be right back.
All right.
Boom, boom, boom. All right. Let's see. Let's look at how about using the same philosophy for the younger DBs? How about throwing Andre Selden Jr. out there? Look, why not? I said the same thing. That starting with DJ Turner. I mean, he's just the most ready. But would I be willing to give, Darion Green-Warren and Andre Selden some run? Yeah, I'd be willing to give them some run. Give one of those guys, especially Selden. I mean, he recruited him for his ability to play nickel. If he can actually cover at nickel, you can throw Dax at corner and have two real cover guys with speed out there. So I would absolutely give him a shot. And how about this? Look, recruiting would not be my primary concern. But if I saw anything of note from those young DBs in practice, and especially from Darion Green-Warren, I'm throwing them out there for recruiting purposes too. I mean, you start out talking about what they are for the defense. Is could they provide a spark or provide some improved play? So you throw them out there for that reason. But additionally, I'm telling you what I know when I say that these DBs that are on campus visiting right now are looking to see if those young guys are playing. And if they see them playing, and especially if they see Darion playing, that sends a very good message, sets a very good tone, and puts a very good taste in the mouths of these recruits and their parents. Because I can tell you again what I know, that they've been asking about it. Do they play their young DBs? Do they play their young corners? That's a question that they had heading into this week. So no better time than the present to let them play. That's again not just throwing them out there if they haven't earned it in practice. If they haven't shown, if they haven't shown that they could perform any better, they don't give you a chance or a prayer of having any better play than what we've seen out there. Then okay, you can't just throw a guy out there that didn't earn it. But if they made a play or two in practice, I don't see how you would say, based on what we've seen thus far, why you wouldn't give them a shot.
All right, guys, we're coming back from break after the legal ID, which is firing right now.
All right.
All right, gentlemen, back on radio in 5, 4, 3, 2.
Welcome back to the KeyBank Countdown and Kickoff, brought to you by KeyBank, powered by Bud Light, driven by Brighton Ford, and supported locally by Wolverine Rental. And we're now in the time of the show. We get into the injury update and get into key matchups. And Sam, man, injuries. Talking about your two tackles, you're talking about your two ends. I mean, where does it end? There's a lot of big losses for the Wolverines, potentially big losses for the Wolverines in the game as we start to get more word of who will, in fact, not be out there on the field tonight.
Well, I said earlier in the show, I don't expect to see either of Michigan starting tackles out there in Jalen Mayfield or Ryan Hayes. It was tough without him last week. You saw the pressure. You saw even more problems with the run game. I think you can definitely tie that largely to their absence. And so you got to hope that those guys, that crew that got their feet wet versus Indiana, can play better this week. And if they can't, you hope that rotating some other guys in there will help lead to some improved play. Defensively, we know Aiden Hutchinson is out for the season. He was lost, I believe, in the first quarter of that game. I think a lot of people missed that when Kwity Paye went out in the third quarter, he didn't come back. And that was an ominous and very telling sign to me because I don't expect to see him out there either. So I would love to be surprised. But that's where I am right now, expecting for Michigan to be without its 2 starting tackles and without its 2 starting defensive ends against a team where you look at them in the trenches, and I think that's their strength on both sides of the ball, the offensive and defensive line. It makes those advantages even greater for Wisconsin in this game, Steve Clarke.
You might think that Michigan is more battered than Wisconsin is when it comes to COVID. COVID, we don't know. We don't know how many starters are going to be out for Wisconsin because of COVID. We don't know if it's their, top guys who wouldn't even made the trip anyway. You have a reduced roster when you actually go on the road. We don't know if it's those guys. But when you look, what we do know about Michigan, that Aiden Hutchinson isn't playing. Sam has his doubts about Kwity Paye. Jalen Mayfield isn't playing, and Ryan Hayes may not be playing. You might make an argument that Michigan is in more trouble due to the injury/COVID front than the Badgers are.
All right, let's get into our key matchups in tonight's matchup. Starting Steve Clarke, Michigan's offense versus Wisconsin's defense.
So again, you're looking at a defensive line that is very, very disruptive, although you're not going to hear a lot about them getting credit and getting a lot of sacks. That's going to free up guys like a guy named Jack Sanborn, who I think is playing because he was made available to the media earlier this week in Madison. He's going to be a disruptive force. There's a couple of guys. There's a new guy on the outside replacing Van Born. I think, it's just going to be a difficult road for Michigan on the offense. If they can do some things, they do have talent. They do have ideas. It's picking the right ones and being able to execute them, I think, is the challenge. And I'm concerned a little bit about for Milton in the fact that he hasn't been successfully throwing downfield too much, that he wants to make sure that those windows are open before he actually throws them down the field. And you got a couple of defensive backs, Sam, and Fayon Hicks and Rashad Wildgoose, who are going to be probably fairly good in the Big Ten this year, not going to allow them to have huge separation.
Yeah, so I think that, first of all, I agree with you about the key matchup there. I look in the trenches and, we'll see how they hold up. I think that's one of the things from a schematic perspective, as much as you can, you got to scheme around some quick game. Hopefully that works in quick game, not just when it comes to, hitting the perimeter, but also maybe some fade balls and trying to take advantage of some one-on-one opportunities out on the outside down the field. We'll see if they do that. But again, looking at Joe from week 2 to week 3, I think that we saw him hit some downfield throws with some pinpoint passes. I think we saw him make some misses as well. I think that what my biggest takeaway, though, was recognition of coverage. And I'll show in the break, I'll show you a key example of what I'm talking about, where there was a play versus Michigan State where he scrambled and ran into a sack, and the commentator said it was great pass defense. No, it wasn't. It was a misread by Joe. Came back against Wisconsin in the same scenario, same play. His second read, he hit it. The 2 touchdown passes, he had a big the touchdown pass to Roman Wilson, and then it was a same route to Ronnie Bell. Second read on both of those plays, he hit. And so you saw him making some progress. You saw him recognition of weaknesses in cover 2. Early in the game, he was late with where he should go with the football, but he knew where he should go. So you're seeing some progress. It's just not fast enough to carry the team. Hopefully that speed that we need with that recognition and making those throws is where we need it to be this week.
You know what I'd like to see? I'd like to see Ronnie Bell score a touchdown. I mean, he scored one last week against Indiana, and that was the second touchdown of his career. For as many catches he gets, for as many yards as he gets, for as many targets he gets, he's just been stuck getting into the end zone. Sometimes even the turf has tackled him, like it did in the Minnesota game. So
yeah,
I would love to see some progress there for him able to get a score and take that to the next level, because I think his effort and his attitude is there, Sam.
I would argue that anyone that didn't see an improvement in recognition of coverage from week 2 to week 3 from Joe Milton doesn't know what they're looking at. You don't know what you're looking at if that's what you think. And I can show you an example of what I'm talking about in the break.
All right, guys, we're going to go to the other side of the ball. Steve Clarke, key matchup, Michigan's defense versus that Wisconsin offense.
So here's one thing that might surprise you. I think Wisconsin's receivers are not as strong as Indiana's were. And so maybe if you're trying to be optimistic and finding a reason for Michigan to win, maybe you can look at that. Maybe you can look at that Wisconsin's quarterback's being off for the last couple of weeks, and although he's rested, he's not exactly sharp. Michigan's defense, if they're getting better week in and, slowly and making the slow baby steps of progress, having receivers that are not as good might be able to help. And the focal point for Wisconsin's receiving is actually their tight end, Jake Ferguson, who had 3 touchdowns in the opener against Illinois. I'm not saying that Kendrick Pryor and Danny Davis are duds. They're not. I mean, they've been around the program for a long time and certainly have made contributions. But it was Quintez Cephas who last year beat Michigan very, very badly. He's not playing in this particular game. They also had A.J. Taylor, who was another good outside threat. He's done at Wisconsin. So I'm not saying that, again, that Wisconsin's a sieve offense. Not at all. But what I'm saying is if you look from where Wisconsin is at from 2019 to 2020, offensively, they may not be as potent. They may not be necessarily as sharp. And if your main guy is the tight end, how much are the corners covering the tight end? Not as much. It's a different set of responsibilities and people covering the tight end. So maybe Michigan will look a little bit better in this week compared to the last couple of weeks.
So I'm rather than talk about it, it may be easy to say the trenches here, but I'm going to talk about the linebackers or zone coverage and linebackers specifically in zone coverage. Michigan, they obviously struggled in their man-to-man defense. The reaction to that was to be a lot softer in coverage last week. We saw them be porous in zone. First thing we got to do is calibrate our expectations. Look, you don't go from having the struggles that they've had to all of a sudden there's some switch they flip and they're going to be good. I think their ceiling is limited this year. There's some things defensively that they just can't fix in season. You can change some personnel and hope that it gets better. I think there's a chance that it will get better with personnel changes. But the biggest thing for me is zone awareness. And they were lacking in that department last week, where you had some linebackers biting on things underneath, leaving some huge holes in the zone behind them. That to me is a big place or area of improvement in this game. That is more technical even than I think the 50-50 balls that the guys have been missing. This is just discouraging some of those throws down the football field just with deeper drops. And then, rally into the football, keep everything in front of you and live to fight another day. Bend but don't break. That's going to lead to some teams going in 10 and 12 play drives, Steve Clarke. But I think with this defense, you got to live with that, knowing that they aren't going to be able to do the 10 to 12 every single series. There are going to be some series where they throw it to you, and they threw it. Michigan had their hands on the ball 4 times defensively, and they didn't come down with any of them. Some huge PIs were in position to make plays. They didn't make any of them. You're going to get those opportunities. Capitalize on a few of them, but make them go the length of the field. Don't give them any of those shots by playing some bend but don't break defense and hoping that your offense can carry you to victory. I think that's the reality of where they are this season.
Wisconsin loves to play time and possession, and it sounds like, Sam, that you want to play a bend but don't break defense. It'd be ironic to say that Wisconsin having the ball for 40 minutes might be the best thing for Michigan in terms of winning this game.
All right, guys. Coming up next, one sure thing, game picks and more on the Wolverines and the Badgers. So stay with us. This is the KeyBank Countdown and Kickoff live from Saline, Ypsilanti, and Ann Arbor on Sports Talk 1050 WTKA The Ticket and on Ticket TV.
All right. Clear on radio.
Let me pull up something real quick. An example of what I am talking about.
Try to help, Mike.
All right, here's a play. Here's an example of Joe not seeing the field versus Michigan State. Let me share this real quick. Share this screen. You got me? All right, yep. So this is Joe not seeing the field versus Michigan State. Now, first read is the safety. See where he is. You see him highlighted, right?
Mm-hmm.
Second read is your flat defender. Right there. You read this guy. He sees the safety is in the middle of the field. He's not going to be able to get this route. How does this flat defender react to the corner? Does he stay shallow and take the flat receiver, or does he ascend to the corner? And watch what that guy does. So a hit play. That's your flat guy. Did you see? Look at this guy. Back to the line of scrimmage. That's his second read. Ball should go here. What does Joe do? Run into a sack. Right? So now let's go.
Sam, Sam, I would look at that visual and think that the guy going upfield was his second read, and the check down flat at the line of scrimmage out there.
You check the safety, but you're looking to go to the corner. His second read is the flat. Like, you're checking the safety. Safety is your first read. Flat defender is your second read. That absolutely is the case. I guarantee you, flat defender is the second read. But let me give you a Indiana example real quick. See if I have enough time to do this. All right.
You got a minute and a half, so you should be all right.
All right. Here we go. Let me show this one. Same scenario. All right. So this time, that's your flat defender, right? He sees the safety in the middle of the field. So I'm highlighting the flat defender. Now watch Joe this time. Now you got that corner route being read or being run. How does this flat defender here react? You see him descending in the middle of the field. So what does Joe do? Boom. Hits his drop off. Now, that had to be a coaching point because that's the play that he botched in week 1, where he did not see the field. He saw it on that play, same scenario. He got it right in week 2. But then this drive route to Ronnie Bell to give you another second read example. So the first read is your drive route coming across the middle. See how these linebackers react. If those guys react, if this guy reacts to your check down, if this guy reacts to the drive, then you hit the post behind it to Ronnie Bell. So now you watch Joe. See how these guys react. Your linebacker stays with your check down. Your first read, he goes with the drive. See him go with the drive? It's a wide open post behind you. And he wound up hitting on the same play. He wound up hitting Roman Wilson for a touchdown later in the game. So again, his recognition was definitely better. Now, is it where it needs to be fully? No. But it was definitely better from week 2 to week 3.
All right, guys, we're coming back to radio here in 10 seconds.
Taking it to the top, fellas. Taking it to the top. Or the bottom, I should say.
Straight till 6:30?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Coming back on radio in 5, 4, 3, 2.
This is the KeyBank Countdown to Kickoff, and we have been brought to you by KeyBank, powered by Bud Light, driven by Brighton Ford, and supported locally by Wolverine Rental here on Sports Talk 1050 WTKA The Ticket and on Ticket TV. It's now time for One Sure Thing, brought to you by Home Shore Lending. If you're looking for a mortgage and you're a Michigan fan, there's only one place to go. Home Shore Lending, both fair and honest. Home Shore Lending is local, efficient, and small enough so you'll work directly with the owner, Matt Demarest. For more information, go to homeshorelending.com. So, Sam Webb, what is your one sure thing?
Oh, wow. My one sure thing is that Wisconsin's going to rush for more yards than Michigan in this game. I hate to say it. Sorry, Steve, to be able to go chalk and Ira to go chalk on this one for something in Wisconsin's favor, but I think that is the surest bet you can make in this game. Wisconsin will rush for more yards than Michigan.
All right, I got a couple of true falses before we get your game predictions and we get out of here, and it kind of goes along in the line with what you're just talking about. So how about this one? First one, Steve Clarke. Wisconsin's quarterback, who we think will be Graham Mertz. He's warming up on the field. Apparently, it could be Jack Cohn. We'll find out soon enough. But Wisconsin's quarterback, or maybe the Wisconsin quarterback position, will throw for at least 275 yards and 3 TDs. And the last two quarterbacks that Michigan has faced each threw for over 320 yards and 3 touchdowns each. So will Wisconsin's quarterback position throw for at least 275 and 3 touchdowns in this game?
I'll go true on that one. I think Graham Mertz is a good quarterback. It shows Jack Cohn. Jack Cohn was the number one quarterback going into camp till he injured his foot. And again, if what Sam is feeling about the pass rush is true for Michigan, your two best edge rushers not being able to get in the backfield and be on the field at all, I think it's going to be very difficult to slow down Wisconsin's offense.
Yeah. What did Rocky Lombardi throw for against Michigan?
I think that was 323.
Yeah, true.
All right, Sam, we'll go with you first on this one. Wisconsin will have a 100-yard rusher. Not 100-yard rushing as a team, obviously. We're talking about individuals. Wow. Michigan State and Indiana did not have individual 100-yard rushers. Ibrahim did, obviously, in the opener for Minnesota, but Michigan has not had an individual get 100 yards against them in the last two games, although Indiana, Scott was like 4 yards away.
I'm going to go with false. I think that collectively they will rush for more. I'm not going to go with a single 100-yard rusher in this game. No, their running backs don't strike me, any of them, as guys that will put together routinely that kind of effort. But collectively, I think they will still be too potent for Michigan. So I'm going to go false on a single 100-yard rusher, but collectively they will absolutely outrush Michigan, I think, in this game.
I hate to say it, but I'm going true with it. I think Wisconsin gets a big break on one of these, bouncing to the outside. Again, you got two potentially fresh faces coming in on the defensive edges on either side of the edge, and maybe they'll get lucky on one and then enough support carries, because Wisconsin wants to improve their running game. They want to continue to work on that. They especially think that that's their Achilles heel.
All right, we're going to flip this to the other side and ask the same questions about Michigan's guys. True or false, Steve Clarke? Joe Milton will throw for 300 yards. He had 300 and 342 in the losses. He had 225 in the win. So Joe Milton will throw for 300 yards. True or false, Steve Clarke?
Going true, because I think Michigan's going to be behind in this game early, and eventually they're going to have to start throwing the ball down the field, much like they did against Indiana. You might see the same thing where the rushing game gets abandoned in the second half because of the size of the deficit.
I'm going to go with true as well. I mean, I think the offense is predicated upon, as much as you wish it wasn't, predicated upon Joe throwing the football. And I think that's their best offense. I think it's really the only consistent thing they've done. And that I know hasn't been as consistent as we want it to be. But that tells me that, 300 yards passing is a reasonable expectation. For him, the question is, how does he get those 300 yards? To Steve's point, is it coming from behind, or is it a consistent offensive attack over the course of the game? We obviously hope that it's the latter.
All right, Sam, last of these. Michigan will have at least 100 yards rushing as a team. True or false?
False.
Set the bar low.
False.
And you're still saying false. Steve Clarke?
Yep, ditto.
All right, it's time for your game picks. Sam Webb, you pick first. What do you have in this one?
I'm hopeful that the progress that we've seen that we saw some phases of the passing game last week will continue and improve even more. That now that Ronnie Bell is the go-to guy, that we're going to see him on every third down be a threat. I didn't feel like we saw that in the first half. We saw some of those young guys really step up. I just don't think it's enough. Not with your two starting tackles out. Now your two starting defensive ends out. Even if the defense is improved, I just don't know that they'll stop the run consistently enough or get off the field consistently enough to not have Wisconsin just dominate the time of possession. I got Wisconsin winning this game. I'm going to keep the score manageable. I got them winning it 34-20.
Steve?
I think Wisconsin's going to try to rush the ball, as I think I indicated earlier, because that's, I think, something they want to work on from the Illinois game. Of course, everything's going to be predicated on what the Michigan defense is going to do. If Wisconsin's smart, you take what the defense gives you. Michigan is struggling on both sides of the defense against the rush and against the pass. They're going to have to make a choice, and Wisconsin will eventually try to go to the other end. But if Wisconsin has a big enough lead, they'll work on their deficiencies, which is the rushing game. Sort of seeing the same thing that Sam is on this one, where they start controlling the ball in the time of possession. They don't necessarily have to throw deep bombs. They could throw short, throw into the middle to Ferguson. They don't have to run fly patterns as Ferguson on a seam route or anything like that. Wisconsin tries to control the game. And if I've filled enough time, Ira, I'll say it's 38-17.
Not a lot of optimism for that. Sam, optimism for the recruiting weekend that's going on this weekend?
Yeah, man. I mean, that's going pretty well. I mean, the reactions from Sierra Wright, from Domanick Jackson, the two Cali corners, one in 2021 and one in 2022. Both of those guys are having a whale of a time. And I think Michigan, even with the questionable performances thus far, and even with whatever happens tonight, I think that they will have come out ahead of where they were with those two guys. Now, is that enough to get them? Remains to be seen. But I think their connection with the other recruits has impressed them enough. And the opportunity that is clearly there at Michigan is welcoming enough for Michigan to have improved its position. Now, if Michigan plays some of these young corners, if they see Darion Green-Warren on the football field in some capacity today, that'll really help too. We'll have to see how it goes.
Thank you to game day producer Matt the Miz Mizler back inside the MDen studios. Thanks to JJ McCarthy, Christian and Christian Dixon, Rod Moore, and Sierra Wright for joining us on the show. Thanks to Joe Simon, Greg Dooley, my guys Sam Webb and Steve Clarke. And thanks to all of you for listening and watching and interacting with tonight's show. Don't forget to go to WTKA.com/countdown to enter for your chance to win the ultimate Bud Light Victor's Lounge tailgated home package, courtesy of our friends at Bud Light. In about an hour, a little over an hour from the Big House, it's Michigan versus Wisconsin. The Wolverines really need this one, and hopefully they can pull out a surprise victory over the Badgers. After the game, join me for the Retirement Income Solutions Locker Room Wrap-Up Show, presented by Alta Equipment Company right here on Sports Talk 1050 WTK The Ticket and on Ticket TV. Now it's time for coverage from the Michigan Sports Network. Enjoy the game, everybody, and as always, go Blue.
Hey.
Clear on radio.